Welcome to a special edition, I guess, of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, today's episode, we're going to call this Wheel of Giants Quarterbacks. And I had to play around with AI to come up with a cool little image for that thing. And Mrs. BBI was one of our choices for quarterbacks. So we have options. If we can't get the old school, and we are talking old, maybe Mrs. BBI could be the quarterback.
Yes, and then we're live. We want to make sure we're live here. And do we have people in chat? Yes, it looks like we have people in chat. We're live.
Yep.
Awesome. It's always helpful when you guys let us know we're live.
We got one who wants us to talk him off the ledge already. I don't know, because there's only so much room on the ledge, and I think all of us are on it.
Yeah, I think we should back up a little bit because I was thinking about this earlier. There's good things and bad things to talk about. And one of the good things, if you want to start off positive, nothing's changed.
Right.
So when we started this discussion 2 weeks ago, roughly, we were saying, if Derek Carr became available or Kirk Cousins became available, the quarterback market changes. They have not become available in terms of they've not been released. Now Carr redid his contract, so I don't even know if he's tradable. To be honest with you, I don't know if he's tradable at this point. I don't know if the contract even allows that. Cousins, they're reporting today at 4 p.m. A roster bonus kicks in, and I think he's still tradable. But we said from the very beginning, if those two aren't on the market, the quarterback market and free agency was going to be very limited. You and I sort of thought Sam Darnold was not going to be an option for a number of different reasons. We can rehash them if you want, and we thought Justin Fields wasn't a good fit. So we thought all along it was going to be possibly Aaron Rodgers and possibly Russell Wilson, or they would go to second/third team quarterbacks. Nothing's changed though. So even though we've been going through this whole week of when is Rodgers going to sign, Flacco came in and visited on Thursday. Wilson was there Thursday night and Friday. They both left without contracts. We're still where we were a week ago because the guys that we were talking about are still out there. So Rodgers theoretically still could sign with the Giants. Wilson's still out there. Flacco's still out there if you want to go the second tier, but nothing's really changed. It just seems like because we're waiting, things are falling off the cliff, and that's not really true.
Yeah, you're right. Nothing is changed. The only thing that has even remotely changed is that the Giants actually met with Russell Wilson. The thing that I saw a couple of people post, and again, grain of salt, because the Giants don't exactly tell you that, is that he wants a 2-year deal. The Giants are offering a 1-year deal. So the question really becomes, is that really, true? Is that really what he's looking for, is a 2-year deal? Is it the Giants are just offering the one, or are they holding steady? What bothers me, and I wrote this on like 4:00 this morning on BBI, bigblueinteractive.com, is the fact that the Steelers offered a contract to Justin Fields, and he didn't respond to them. He ultimately goes to the Jets.
Wait, do we know if they did that? Did they offer him?
Well, let's put it this way. That's the report, is that they offered, they gave an offer to Fields, and he didn't even bother responding, and he went to the Jets. What I'm not hearing is the Steelers have offered Russell Wilson anything. They don't even seem inclined to be bringing him in. In fact, they went out of their way and picked up Mason Rudolph and brought him back. So it seems to me like the Steelers, it's either Aaron Rodgers or they're going to go with Rudolph and just kind of hope for a rookie. At least that's the way it appears at the moment. The Giants seem to be all in on it's Rodgers or then Wilson or then Flacco, some sort of combination possibly. So I think it's a weird situation that you've got one guy who's coveted by two teams, but that guy, it's like this weird soap opera. That guy wants to go to Minnesota. That's the rumors. He really wants Minnesota to offer him some. And from what you can see so far, if Minnesota wanted him, this would already be a done deal, I think. They would already have him. They're not going out of their way to try to get Aaron Rodgers, and I can't see why they would do that. You know what I mean? Like, why you've got J.J. McCarthy. You could have had Sam Darnold if you wanted to keep him, and he was already in your team, already knew all your plays. You're not bringing in a big personality. It's a guy that can fit, and O'Connell coaches quarterbacks. You could have kept Daniel Jones. You had him for a number of months. You could have said, okay, we'll roll the dice with JJ and Daniel, and we'll be okay there. They're basically sitting there on the side with JJ McCarthy, and I think they're kind of holding steady. I don't see them as just jumping through hoops to get Aaron Rodgers, but that's what he seems to want. So the Giants are bidding against basically Aaron Rodgers' heart to go somewhere else. I don't think they're bidding against the Steelers because it's already been reported the Giants have offered more money than the Steelers, and it sounds like 90 plus million for 2 years. That's insane.
Yeah, the whole thing is very bizarre from this point of view. Is Rodgers is showing why the Jets probably got tired of him. It's this, he should have been able to make up his mind now, because this wasn't something that was presented to him recently. He had to know that this was coming down the pipeline. And does he really want to play for the Giants? Does he really want to play for the Steelers? If he doesn't, then just tell those teams that and then move on. I mean, now there's all kinds of things out there, like he may retire. Like you said, he's really waiting on the Vikings. This gets back to what you talked about for many episodes about supposedly Shane and Dable sat down with Mara at some point and laid out a vision for this team. And this was back in late December, early January.
Yes.
What was the vision that they had laid out for the team? Because right now it seems to have been Matthew Stafford might have been the play, but what was the fallback option? Was the fallback really this weird situation with Rodgers that we find ourselves in? I mean, was this the fallback, or is the fallback ultimately the draft? And because where they're picking in the draft, they don't really have full control over that too. So you saw Darius Slayton address the media this week, along with the other new free agents that came. They all had a press conference this week. They all talked to the media. And Darius Slayton, again, was asked about, why is he back? And he said, he was up front. He said, I didn't think I was coming back. It's interesting that I saw John Schmelk and one of the other Giants employees on their show talking about that they felt when Darius was leaving at the end of the year, he wasn't coming back. When he was cleaning out his locker, he was kind of saying his goodbyes. And so when you and I talked about Darius probably not coming back, he was on his way out. The Giants employees felt he was gone. But during the press conference, he said, yeah, they talked to me about what their plans are at quarterback. And this was this week. So, and he seemed to like, and we'll get into this, but like Myles Garrett was talking to the Cleveland Browns about their plans, they've seemed to have told their players they know what they're doing. But I'm having a hard time figuring out what their options are right now, because their options right now seem to be Rodgers, who seems to, let's be honest, he's being flaky about this.
He's being himself. He's being himself.
And I'm not even sure I want that at this point, because, I mean, part of me says, yeah, because what else do we have to, but, you've got guys out there saying he may not even show up to practice. He may not, he may not want to hang around the team in the off season. You remember OTAs are voluntary.
Sure.
So do you want your new quarterback, the guy that you're trying to get your players excited about and believe in, not even showing up for work? So part of me is like, I don't want a part of this, but then I'm also, what other because I'm sorry, I can't get excited about Russell Wilson. That, to me, he seems cooked to me. And this is my personal bias. I thought he was cooked in his last year in Seattle.
Yes.
He did in Denver. I thought, my personal bias supported what my opinion was, because he was a train wreck in Denver. He comes to Pittsburgh, and he's on a very strong team. And I think he went 6-5, started off all right, kind of faded down the stretch. But again, I kind of see the same thing that's the book on him. He throws these, if you go and look at his highlights, they're all these moon balls left, moon ball right plays. And you see very few plays where he's attacking the middle of the field. And that's kind of the book on him. And plus, so much of his game was his mobility, and his mobility is gone. So, I mean, that doesn't seem to fit Dable's and Kafka's offense to me. It just seems like it's a really bad fit. I'm almost like to the point where you were at, Joe Flacco might make sense, but that can't be the plan that they sold Mara on, and that they sold people like Darius Slayton on. I mean, so what is their plan?
So I think this is going to sound very arrogant, so I apologize ahead of time. I don't mean it to be, but I kind of feel like I think the plan is obvious. It's just not, the details of the specifics aren't so obvious. The obvious part, and they kind of let the cat out of the bag. They use the word trade, but trade could also mean a veteran gets released that wasn't going to be a free agent, which is Rodgers. But we're going after a guy. We're going to go get a guy. We're going to chase a guy. They didn't count on the draft. That to me is secondary. That's the future forward. But for this year, here's the thing. Yes, and Duncan, I'm going to do the one thing that I absolutely hate doing, and Eric's going to be shocked when I do it. The Colts game, I think, solidified for. I think Daboll cemented his fate in that one game with Mara. I think you might blame Mara for believing in the one game. I think all along he wanted to bring Daboll back. I think you and I had this conversation going way back to the beginning. And I said right from the get-go, as things started to go kind of sideways early, that I had a weird feeling that those guys must have been promised that they were coming back. I saw no reason that you would keep pushing Daniel Jones back out there, tell everybody he's your best chance to win, and he just isn't, you're just not scoring. That can't possibly be true then. Then we found out that they were looking, we had heard, you had heard, and we talked about, but we couldn't say exactly who, that they were looking at a quarterback, which was ultimately Matthew Stafford. That was proven to be true when they tried again as the season ended. So I think when that game happened, that Colts game happened, Daboll, what did he say right afterwards in the press conference afterwards? When you get competent quarterback play, this is what you get. It doesn't matter that your opponent laid down like a three-legged dog. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, literally. I mean, it just laid down more than a $3 hooker. But the point of all of that is that I think that's what they sold it on. We have to get a competent veteran quarterback can run my offense. Look what we did in 22 with a Daniel Jones that we managed around his deficiencies, and we won X number of games. We all know that the games possibly are a fallacy now looking at it, but you can't discount the fact that they did manage to win. If that's true, then I think the veteran piece first, they went back to Matthew Stafford, right? Season ended, tried it again. Aaron Rodgers, it became very obvious the Jets wanted to get away. Now, one thing you said, and the reason I'm going to say this, I think the Jets circus, which got rid of Salah, got rid of the GM, at that point, you knew you couldn't bring back the ringmaster, which was Rodgers. You couldn't bring him back and get rid of all the other circus employees. You basically had to ship him out too, because you can't bring a new guy in with the foundation of the guy who was kind of running the organization from inside. It's still there. So I think they were just like, just go. We're bottom of the barrel. Just go. But Rodgers still is at 28 touchdown passes last year on a really bad Jets team. Let's not forget their offensive line wasn't that great. Ours is bad. They had more talented star players that they signed. Smith at tackle, he failed. His back is just given out. They went through multiple guard centers. They were changing people around because of injuries. Their tight end play was average at best. The receiving stuff never gelled properly. So they had a lot of issues there. And Rodgers still threw 28 touchdown passes. So I think that was target number 2. Russell Wilson, to me, I don't even know that he'd be 3. I think you were on to the other one, which is Carr, but he didn't become available. Right. I think if Carr had become available, the Giants would be chasing him right now.
That was my number 1.
That was yours.
Number 1 guy.
That was yours. I wanted Stafford when I knew he was a trade possibility, but I had also mentioned Rodgers because I was pretty confident that the Jets were going to move on. There was a weird thing somewhere in late December, I believe it was late December, where Rodgers kind of already said he was going to come back, and he mentioned come back in New York. And a lot of people started tagging the Giants as he's talking about playing for the Giants. It was a weird thing. It went on for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it kind of died down. But now it appears, and Treymaster mentioned it on BBI and in here, that Rodgers might be weighing retiring. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. But anyway, we can get back to Rodgers. Your point of what is their process. I think it's veteran. But we're running out of veterans.
You said trade. Who are you thinking they're trading for?
See, I had 2 guys in mind that I thought might be a possibility.
Rice and Cousins?
You killed the first one, which is I thought Kyler Murray might be on the block. I thought the Cardinals might be trying to shop him. The other one,
I didn't kill it. I don't know.
No, it's okay. A lot of people hate it.
Options. They're running out. I don't know what they're going to. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what Rodgers wants. Is Rodgers really just negotiating for more money? Is he just want the attention right now, and he's just loving this attention and people wondering about him? And,
that's what I think.
And that sucks. And then if you do sign him, how committed is he to this? I don't know what the plan is going forward. The thing is again, I would just want to harp because I did write some names on it. Nothing has changed since free agency started, except guys like Mac Jones, Minshew, Heineke, Zach Wilson, Josh Dobbs, Jacoby Brissett. They're off the board. So some of these guys are signing. I'm not saying the Giants would have been after these guys, but these were some of the second/third tier guys that you might have pursued, or if you were going cheaper. What I think is interesting is, I want to get into this because you know how I get off on tangents and we'll forget. I want to circle back to this. But what did we say when we started these shows? We said if the Giants sign a Flacco type guy, we thought they would have to draft a quarterback in the first round.
Right.
That's what we thought. Now, we might change, our opinions might change, but a week or two ago, you and I repeatedly said that they can't be relying on Dable. And I want to separate this because people, and I know this is a contentious, that's why I started a thread on this. The long-term interests of the New York Giants do not match the short-term interests of Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. We would like to think that they would fall on the sword and do everything that possibly to make the team better. Somebody even made a decent point on the site today. I think it was G. Maynor who said, Shane's got to also think about his next job. And if he does something really stupid, he might not get another job. But I can't move past the fact that these guys are thinking about their own interests. And to me, the proof in this, again, and that's bringing us up the direction that you think, is the Colts game, is Brian Dable treated the Colts game differently than he did the Eagles game once he knew he was coming back. So in other words, he wasn't doing the right thing in the Colts game. He did the right things in the Eagles game because he was told he was. And that to me is the proof that these guys are thinking about out for number one first. At least Brian Dable is.
That could be, but again, you have to weigh. I know we disagree slightly on this, but you do have to weigh the fact. Keep in mind, John Mara's on the competition committee. Number one. Number two. Once the Eagles made it obvious that they weren't playing their guys, the Giants could just not play anybody. Now, your point is the Giants still could have pulled people during the game. I will not argue that point. You are right. They could have. But at the time, they're playing. I still don't think the Giants thought they were going to win that game. I swear to God.
We've all gone through seasons where the Giants were good and bad, where they've pulled their starters. The whole thing about the 2007 season when they finished up with the Patriots and played their starters was most people were arguing the Giants shouldn't even played their starters in a game that still, again, didn't really have meaning in terms of the Giants making the playoffs, but it still was a meaningful game. So what I'm saying is this is done all the time. Players, and I've gone through seasons where the Giants have played backup players to get a better read on guys going into the following season. So I don't buy this thing, well, the Giants couldn't have sat their starters because that's just not done. It's been done every year by multiple teams for different reasons.
Sure.
So I just don't buy. Anyway, I don't want to spend time on it.
But at the other part, it's true. But the other part of that too, and again, it doesn't matter whether you think one way and I think the other way. It doesn't change the fact. But keep in mind too, though, the Giants on defense were down a ton of players. Their defensive line basically was guys they just picked up off the street or off the practice squad. We were down to almost nobody. Again, I believe truly they didn't expect to win. That being said, and the draft position, I don't care. I don't care about the draft.
Well, it's too late. So it's too late.
But let's look at the quarterback situation for the moment. The thing that keeps coming back up is the fact that what's weird though is we're Giant fans, so we are very Giants focused. But if we just stop for a second, right? Put the Giants aside. Look at Pittsburgh. What the hell are they doing? They've got Mason Rudolph is they're essentially their starting quarterback at the moment. The only other guy they have is Skylar Thompson. So they're no different than us. We've got Tommy DeVito, and I'd say, yeah, Mason's probably better than Tommy DeVito, but I'm going to pay Tommy DeVito a lot less than I'm going to pay Mason Rudolph, and I'll end up with the same number of wins probably that you will with Mason Rudolph. So I'm not worried about that. Our offense has more, I think, has some better players than the Steelers do overall. I think our offensive line has better players than the Steelers' offensive line has. Aaron Rodgers trying to pick one of these two spots, it's literally money. That's the difference. So that's why
that's the question. You think it's money? I don't know what it is.
Well, no. I think it's money between us and the Steelers.
You think he's still trying to do you think he's, because you've said two different things. Do you think he's trying to squeeze attention out of this? Or do you think he's still trying to squeeze dollars out of this?
I think there's a third thing with it. Number one is I think Aaron Rodgers, and again, who knows? But
I don't know.
This is my impression of watching this guy. If you watched him back when he was leaving Green Bay, right, and the Jets wooed him, what happened there? The rumors were out constantly that he was going. The Jets flew out to California to go see him. There was all this talk. He then didn't say for a couple of days, and then finally revealed it on McAfee's show almost a week after the Jets had flown out to see him. Mm-hmm. He likes the drama piece of that. So that's one. The second part of it, I think part of the drama with it is I think Rodgers, I think he overestimated what other teams would want, thinking he's available. Somebody else who's on the fringe was going to jump up and go, we want Aaron Rodgers. And that ain't happening. Now the team that's been hinted, but quite frankly, the only reason the people keep trying to label the Vikings as an option is because Sam Darnold was the quarterback last year and he left. It's not like the Vikings have been going, we got to woo Aaron Rodgers. We're bringing him in. We want to meet with him. We want to talk with him. It has all come from Rodgers' team or somehow leaked through the media that he wants to play for the Vikings. We haven't heard a word. What did we hear? I think it was Diana Rossini and somebody else mentioned the same thing. The Vikings are contemplating whether or not. What the hell does that mean? You gave it a thought? I mean, it's not
the whole Viking thing about this is weird. I think it's what you said earlier. I think this is what you said earlier. I think Aaron Rodgers probably wants to go to the Vikings.
Yes.
And he's trying to get them to jump into this. And I don't think they're going to jump. They could, but they might put us out of our misery at this point. I actually don't know if this is good or bad for Aaron Rodgers to come here. The way I'm looking at it this way right now is Rodgers gives us flexibility to not do something stupid in the first round. That's the way I'm looking at it now. I don't really want him on the team, but I'm looking at him as an insurance policy against stupidity. That's the way I'm looking at it.
With that in mind, and I didn't mean to step on you right
there.
No,
that's right.
I want to ask you a question. With that in mind, let's play scenarios for just for fun. Let's stick with Rodgers. Okay.
Can I say one thing before because I'll
anything
forget.
You want. Anything you want.
The Steelers thing that you just made is a really good point. So I've been trying to go on a lot of Steelers stuff to try to get a feel for what's going on there. Their fan base is just like us right now. It's actually kind of funny. You would think that they weren't a playoff team. They're bitching about their draft picks not panning out in the first round. We wouldn't be in this situation if we knew how to draft. They're arguing. They're saying, I don't want anything to do with Rodgers. This is ridiculous. I think they're probably in a slightly better situation because they're the guy that they just signed, Rudolph, is better than DeVito. So they're in at least if they had to go into a season right now, their quarterback situation, this guy has played relatively well when he's had to play. And so they're a little bit better off with that. And they have a stronger team. But it's funny that the Steelers are just fans are as upset as we are. Right.
There's Cy is with us. Damn, Cy. Keep you as a regular.
Well, that's the thing. What I wondered about McCarthy is the word that came out is that he's going to be ready and he's fine. But I wonder about that too. And if they do want Rodgers, have they made him an offer and we just haven't heard? Or I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, this Diana Rossini keeps bringing up the Vikings. She won't let that go. And she's been pretty good. So I don't know if she knows something. But this whole thing what John was just talking about, they're having internal discussions and debating whether I don't know what that means. I mean, you'd think they would have decided one way or the other right now. but maybe our timetable is different than everybody else's. Anyway, you were going to ask me something before I wanted to throw that Steelers thing, that the Steeler fans are just as up in arms right now as Giants fans. It's actually kind of funny given the fact that they're a playoff team.
I think, yeah. And also, too, keep in mind that Mike Tomlin is not as secure as he has been in the past. There's been questions. There were some questions of whether he might be wanting to kind of move on. There's some questions of, the playoff success that the Steelers have had. They have not won to the level of which you would think. They make the playoffs, but they haven't won in the playoffs. They struggled the last couple of years. And right now, you would think the weird sort of concoction that they threw together on offense with a Russell Wilson and a Justin Fields, kind of very different quarterbacks altogether. They both have some mobility, but Wilson is much more, as you said, he's much more the moon ball, the throw the ball down the field kind of guy. And Fields is more of the athletic, I make a throw on the run every now and then, but I run a lot. So they didn't have that precision passer guy on the team at all. They are a heavy run-oriented team with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. It also seems like a very odd choice to now then switch gears and go, we'll bring Aaron Rodgers there. The other piece is Mason Rudolph with that team. Yes, I think he might be better than Tommy DeVito, and that's fine. But you just brought in, you already have one volatile personality at wide receiver, a guy that you had a hard time controlling last year. He caused problems. Tomlin was having issues with him. There was questions in the locker room if they were babying Tomlin. Or they were babying Pickett. Sorry, Tomlin was babying him. Now you add DK Metcalf, who isn't exactly a guy who toes the line and doesn't throw, I want the ball and hasn't made a big deal. He kind of pushed his way out of Seattle over time. He wanted the ball. He was kind of a me kind of guy. So you've got two volatile wide receivers. So do you want to bring in a potentially volatile member at quarterback for those two guys too?
But they're trying to get over the hump. So I see why they might, because again, they're a desperate team. So I can see. So why do you bring in a Metcalf unless you think you're ready?
Agreed.
To go to the next level. And so again, they're kind of like us in this sense. I mean, look who's out there now left. I try to make a list. So Flacco's still out there. Wentz has not signed, right? So Wentz is still there.
Correct.
Cooper Rush, Drew Lock. Drew Lock's actually one of the better guys, and Jameis Winston's out there. So besides Rodgers and Russell Wilson and Flacco. So out of that group, I mean, I don't know what the plan is for Pittsburgh. Like you said, I don't know what the plan for Pittsburgh. I don't know what the plan is for the Giants right now. I don't know. So
where I wanted to go before. No. But yeah, where I wanted to go with that. Let's stick to the Rodgers thing for the moment. Let's say we get him. Okay, we get him. What do you, Eric, if you are the GM, if you're Joe Shane, what is your next big thing? Are you then focused on the draft? And if so, what are you doing in the draft? Or what is your next step if you get Aaron? Maybe even if you promise something to him to get him to sign. What is your step?
I'm not a terribly patient person. That's my own personal baggage. And I'm kind of done with Rodgers at this point. And, I still would not be shocked if the Giants sign Rodgers. I'm not expecting it, but I won't be shocked if they do sign Rodgers. How long they're willing to wait, I don't know. But I'm not a particularly patient person. I would operate right now is, of all the quarterbacks that are out there, it would probably be Flacco or maybe Wentz. And then I'm completely focused on the draft. And if the draft doesn't work out for me, then I'm not trying to punt to next year, but I want to get into this. It's looking like the quarterbacks could go 1-2 before us. So, and I want to get into that because I want you to play the clip with Myles Garrett, which is interesting that Cleveland put that out. So Cleveland may be playing a poker hand here, but if they are, Myles Garrett's a pretty good actor. They're not going to fix the Giants quarterback situation by signing a veteran. That's done. It's not going to happen. They could.
Well, it depends on what you mean by that.
Well, they can make it tolerable. They could make it tolerable for one season, right? They can make it tolerable, but we're not going to the Super Bowl with whoever they sign. I'm not even sure we'd be a playoff team. I know you think that we might be a playoff team with with Aaron Rodgers. We might sneak in, but Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson aren't taking us anywhere.
But that's why I asked you what you would do if you got Rodgers.
I would sign Flacco or Wentz, and I would completely focus on the draft right now.
So this is what I would do, and I think this is what they probably are. Not specific players. I don't know what the hell they're thinking, but this is what I think they're doing. I think they probably already have told this to Rodgers. If I sign Rodgers, I've committed to I'm winning this year. I am doing the next step is that I'm on the phone with a team like the 49ers. I'm trying to get Brandon Ayuk. I need another big time player. I think the reason we brought Darius Slayton back was to be the 3 or the 4. I don't think they're counting on Jalen Hyatt at all, assuming we get Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I find no value in bringing Slayton back if you roll out a Russell Wilson, a Joe Flacco, because in reality, you've given up on the season. You're just hoping to win 4 or 5 games and not look so bad that you lose like 13 again. Slayton, to me, is a luxury. That's where he's going to be maybe the 3rd or the 4th guy because you want another big-time target. And Wan'Dale Robinson is more of a gadget player, and he's more of a guy that you can use kind of more intermittent, but the Giants are using him a ton, too much. So I think you go get another guy, a Brandon Ayuk, maybe a Stephon Diggs, if you've mentioned before, that's a free agent. We could sign him. You're going to bring in another name because you got to give Rodgers another weapon. The draft becomes, do I then trade assets and move up and take one of the guys for my future? Do I sit at 3 and just take one of the 3 quarterbacks? Because here's the deal. If Dart is anywhere near equivalent to Sanders in the Giants' mind, if they're saying we're going to eschew our normal rankings, right? Like we saw last year, they had the quarterbacks 3 really high. Everybody else was slotted exactly how they wanted, which is why you don't see J.J. McCarthy, you don't see Penix, and you don't see Nix in those top guys. They're down further. If the Giants are going to eschew that and go quarterbacks positionally are going to be adjusted higher this year because of our need, which is bad, but you put yourself in that position, then if you go 1-2 and Dart is really close to Sanders, you take Dart at 3, there's your future because I'm playing Rodgers. I'm not saying that's the route I'd like to go, but I could see them doing it. But if you go Rodgers and then get another guy to back up, a Flacco backs him up, or, we bring in a Wentz, although Wentz is it sounded like he might be going to Tennessee. If you get another, maybe Winston would be a weird one to back up Rodgers, but you could bring Boyle back though. Again, Boyle knows Rodgers. Rodgers knows Boyle. He could just back him up. If you get another veteran, you could trade down, get some other picks. We could stay there, take a Hunter, take a Carter. Rodgers opens the door to a lot of options. That's the thing. But I think the Giants have to commit. If you get Rodgers, you got to go get another playmaker who needs to be ready now, not a guy you're hoping could develop. It's a guy that can play right away.
It depends on if Rodgers wants to be here, though. I'm
saying if you got him. I'm saying if you bring him on.
I guess I feel more like this.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you.
Anyways, I feel like we're stuck. I mean, I feel like we're all right. I think Cy, if he's still there, I think Cy is a little bit on the same path that I am. This isn't only going to get addressed ultimately in the draft. I don't know how he feels about Rodgers. To me, again, Rodgers provides the insurance, like I said earlier, that you don't do anything stupid. What I find comical, and Blue Hurricane brought this up in the website earlier. Shout out to Blue Hurricane. I find it comical that last year, Russell Wilson comes into the building. They have a meeting with him, and they basically say, we don't think you're good enough to compete for the starting job, or we don't want you to compete for the starting job with Daniel Jones. Then you go following year, he's now possibly the solution to replace Daniel Jones this year as the starting quarterback.
Do we know that? But do we know that for sure?
What are we doing?
But do we know that for sure? Because the last report that I saw was Wilson asked for the meeting with the Giants.
I saw that too.
Not the other way around.
But we did see, I thought we saw multiple reports last year that they basically said they would not open up the competition at quarterback for the starting quarterback, which to me, I disagreed with at the time. So it's not revisionist history. We didn't know if Daniel Jones was going to be healthy enough, and Daniel Jones
Right.
has not done anything in his career to guarantee that he should have a starting job. He shouldn't be on scholarship anymore. He should have to compete for it. I just find it funny, like Blue Hurricane said, no, we're not going to open up the competition. Sorry. Then he goes to Pittsburgh because the Pittsburgh says, yeah, you can have a chance to start here. And now we might be turning to Russell Wilson a year later. I just find that to me it's completely indicative of the mess that we're in right now. So I keep coming back to this. What was the plan that Shane and Dable sat down with Mara and said, this is our vision moving forward? Because they knew what the free agent market was going to be. Did they put all their eggs? Did they convince themselves that they were going to get Matthews? And I have a strong feeling. I have a strong feeling that they felt that up until he said no, he was coming here. I think they thought they had him. And I think that's why we were hearing of so many reports coming in from my contacts. And I kind of think that maybe that's what Capiche picked up with Aaron Rodgers, is maybe the Giants felt that they had Aaron Rodgers too, Don.
Well, and the thing about Stafford that seems to be pretty legitimate, you could say 1 and 1 equals 2 in this situation, is the fact that, and I said it to you right after we saw the first after the season press conference with Shane spoke and Dayball spoke, and when Shane spoke, he specifically said trade, specifically used the word trade. That wasn't we have options. There's some free agents, we maybe a trade. They literally used the word trade. So I'm thinking, yes, they kind of thought that they had that one in the bag. But I think they thought there would be backups in that Rodgers might be, and then Wilson. It doesn't really matter ultimately. The fact of the matter is they were all in on a veteran. Now, I disagree with some who keep talking about, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, because every one of us are making decisions based on the fact that we think this is what we would do. But if we were the coach of the Giants and our jobs were on the line and we had to win, I'm getting the best goddamn quarterback I can find to win me some games this year, and I'll worry about next year, the year after that. Right now, I can't get fired, or it doesn't matter. And that's really Mara's problem, because he brought them back. But at the same time, it's also potentially Dayball's and Shane's problem of the fact that they sold on the fact we can win if we had a different quarterback. So we can blame them for having Jones. We're kind of past that point. We can blame Mara for probably pushing the Jones thing too far and for bringing these guys back, and blame these guys for selling it. But everybody's kind of done their piece to this. You got to win. You got to have a veteran. These ideas of we're just going to pass on everybody, every option I see people talk about, it's like you throw out names and you're like, well, that one's better than this one. Well, why? Why is Jameis Winston any better? The only thing better is money. It's not wins. It's not, and money is not our problem. None of us are paying this out of our own paychecks.
But it could be also what Sai's talking about here too. There is a downside to all right. So Rodgers is probably, and he's 41 years old. And on the surface, I agree with you. He looks like the best of, if you're going to play a game tomorrow and you wanted to have a quarterback on the field, he's probably the guy that you play. You probably play him above Jameis Winston. You probably play him above Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson's got some baggage too. He apparently he was a good locker room presence in Pittsburgh, but he wasn't great at the end of Seattle, and he certainly wasn't good in Denver. There's all kinds of stuff about him.
It was really bad in Denver, from what I heard.
Really bad in Denver. So there is a downside to bringing Rodgers in too, that it's not the on the field stuff. First of all, he is 41, so you got to wonder, can he hold up and be the same player? But let's just assume he can play like he did down the stretch for the Jets. He's probably the best of the lot that's out there. But he does bring in a lot of this baggage with him. What if he doesn't show up in the spring?
Sure.
What if your quarterback in the spring is, now I had somebody email me this week who knows, this could sound bad, knows someone who knows Flacco. And they say nothing about good things about Flacco off as a locker room presence. They say he's a great guy, to be in there. So if you're looking for a guy to sort of guide the quarterback, teach him to be a pro, someone like Flacco probably makes more sense than maybe a Rodgers, maybe a Russell Wilson. If your point is to draft a rookie and get the rookie on the field as soon as possible. If your point is what you're talking about, and you've got to win games, and you're probably going to have to play the veteran longer than like say Coughlin did in 2004 when he pulled Warner after 9 games. If you're going to play him longer than that, then Rodgers makes more sense. So it depends on who are they drafting and how soon do they want to get him on the field too.
So I'm going to disagree with the culture thing. I don't agree with that because I have yet to hear one single player complain about Aaron Rodgers being on the team. The second thing is the Giants reached out to the Jets' former coaching staff and asked them about Aaron Rodgers. That was already reported. And the Giants got good reviews from all of the former coaches of the Jets of the time that Aaron was an ideal teammate, that Aaron was all in about the team, that they didn't have any problems with Aaron, the player. Now, obviously, he has outside stuff. But let's take a look across the league, right? Everything has changed. Micah Parsons has his own podcast. He interviews players from the other team during the week. Micah Parsons and his former teammate, Dexter Lawrence, are blowing up at each other. And Lawrence's comment back to him was, maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time trying to win, I would still be there and we'd have a Super Bowl. Now, that to me speaks. Yeah,
did you see DeMarcus Lawrence's comments too about bashing his old team too this week?
Well, yeah, he was pissed. I mean, he was mad.
He said they don't have a chance to get to the Super Bowl, so I'm not.
So my point is, the culture thing I think is a bit overrated unless you can tell me that Aaron Rodgers specifically did this, and this, and these players don't. One thing about Aaron Rodgers coming, yes, I think he's a drama. I think he's a diva queen. I think he's got all this other shit that goes around him. But I have heard tons of people who want to play with this guy. They want to be on the team with him. Why? Because he's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. He will definitely be in the Hall of Fame. You know what? I get it. But if the Giants make that agreement with him and they give him $45 million a year for 2 years, I goddamn better hope he shows up. That's part of our agreement. That also might be why he's not signing anything yet either. I suspect that some of what the Giants included, because you brought it up, Eric, was potentially playing time. And if I'm Rodgers, I don't take any deal that includes playing time. The reason is playing time's in your hands. If you're the coach and you decide we're out of this, or the owner goes, we're done this year, I don't want to pay him, get him off the field, then I'm not going to get paid. So if I'm Rodgers, I make no deal that has anything to do with playing time. It only has to do maybe with availability, meaning against injury. I might be willing to go that route, but I'm not giving up playing time because you know why? I'm a veteran. I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame. You want me so badly, guarantee my damn money, get me on the field. The Giants need to open up the vault. If they want them, open it up.
The vault. They have opened up the vault.
We don't know what they've offered them, though. We don't know if it's a 1 or 2 year deal. If it's a 2 year deal, but the second year's voidable, it's really a 1 year deal. So I don't know what the deal is. I'm just saying is whatever the Giants have done so far, take out the limitations if you want to do this. If not, then you might as well just sign freaking Russell Wilson because you already had him in. You're playing musical chairs, though. And if somebody else pulls a chair out for one of these guys, you're screwed.
We don't know for sure, but there have been reports by national media. I can't remember the specific names of the reporters that the Giants have made a significant offer to him. And
more than the Steelers. Yes.
And we have also heard asshats say the money's going to surprise you guys. So I think there's a lot of money on the table for him. So my wife even said it last night. She said, shit or get off the pot. So, I mean, it's part of me, again, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up Cy's ass, but Cy and I tend to be on the same wavelength with a lot of things. Part of me is old school. I want a quarterback who's going to show up in the offseason program and be there. And I want a guy that you don't have to worry about stuff like this. This drama stuff is wearing on me. And he's not even on the team yet. So, again, I think Rodgers helps the Giants prevent them from doing something stupid. So part of me says I want to get Rodgers still. But a part of me says, oh, this is so tiring. This is so taxing at this point. So, part of it's my baggage. I'm like that. Let's assume, though, for a minute, Rodgers doesn't sign here. Let's assume he retires, or he picks the Steelers, or he's going to wait for a better opportunity to come out there. We have to move on. Who are you going to? Who are you turning to right now? So I've said Flacco or Wentz, and then completely focus on the draft. I don't know who else is out there unless you want to go like Cooper Rush, Jameis Winston. God help us if their answer is to re-sign Drew Lock. I mean,
Well, for me, I'm with you. I actually would, of the available guys, I then say I go Flacco
before Winston.
Before I don't like Jameis Winston, so
Okay.
it's I go Flacco. The other way I turn my attention is I do my due diligence on what's it going to take to maybe get Kirk Cousins out of Atlanta, or I open the door to possibly looking at Arizona. Would they even consider sending Kyler Murray? Again, we can. I don't want to keep going the Rodgers thing. It bugs me. It
I just will say this. My wife said the same thing before the last podcast. She said, if you sign Rodgers and he wins like she said, like 7 games, aren't you just hurting yourself? So, and I know John doesn't agree with that.
Well, because look, I'm a straight up question for anybody in the chat. Give me reasons why. Look at the season last year at the beginning through the first 10 games. How many games would the Giants won? If all things are equal, if everything is equal, meaning Rodgers was the guy he was last year, everything about the Giants is the same, except for the fact that Rodgers is your quarterback. How many games do we win in the first 10?
Well, the Giants certainly think they do because as everyone starts to tell us, they've brought the band back together. No, I know. Now we haven't gotten.
Well, that's a weird. Yeah, that is weird.
10 of 11 starters are now back. And so everyone's back. And again, the draft's still coming up. And I think it was Ryan Dunleavy, and it might have been Dan Dugan too, but they both said this is the prevailing opinion in the building is that only the quarterback kept them from competing last year, at least offensively.
And that was Peter Schrager's opinion too.
Agree with that or not, that appears to be the belief in the building. So, and that goes along with what you're saying right now, is if you had a competent quarterback play, the game like against the Colts, maybe not as because the Colts laid down, as you point out, but the game like the Colts might happen more often.
Well, you got the first Washington game, Cincinnati, Dallas. Those were all winnable games. Even with Daniel Jones at the quarterback, we could have won any of those games. That's 3 games right there early in the season. So if you think about the second Washington game, same thing, competent quarterback play, quite possibly we win that game. And then everything changes depending on everything that happened. You see, you can't really change when injuries happen, but if the season was different plays happen at different times, things change. People don't get injured that were injured. It doesn't matter. But early in the season, I'm saying if we switched them out, we have way more wins than we have. We're talking 4, 5, 6 wins in the first 10 games versus we had 3 out of 17. So all things considered, you got to at least take that into consideration. And that's what the Giants are counting on, because no matter what they do, they've got to try to win.
If we could ensure that we had competent coaching, which to me I think is still up for debate.
You're right. That is true.
And we had a good quarterback, I think you could argue that this is not a bad team, especially given the moves that they made in the offseason on defense. The secondary is a vastly different creature than it was a week ago because of the 2 new additions. You might not like the quality of the players that they brought in on the defensive line as like the ultimate answer, but Golston and Ledbetter and Roy, I'm still getting used to these names. He's got one of the
Roy
Robertson, Harris.
Yes.
These guys add to the rotation at the very least. And I think Golston is an interesting addition, again, for the reasons that we mentioned in the earlier episode. He provides more flexibility to change the defensive front, and he's a more physical football player. His interviews, by the way, I recommend watching his interview with John Schmelk, his one-on-one sit-down. It's kind of enlightening in terms of the things he can do and the way he envisions himself. He sees himself as the 3-technique tackle in a pass rush situation on this team. He already talked about it. He said, I want Burns, Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence and me in the 3-technique to go up the field on the guard. So, but then he can also kick outside and do so. anyways, I think that they're what's weird is this team is like set up to actually be decent, but we don't have a quarterback. So the front office has kind of done everything but the quarterback. And I want to turn to the draft when you're done with the veteran stuff, because to me, I think I'm past the free agents right now. I want to move on to the draft because I'm not optimistic about Rodgers. And if we're signing Russell Wilson, I can't get excited about that, but I will get excited about a draft pick. That's where I am right now. That's at least me.
Yeah, no, I think, so we got Jeff. I'm not going to kill your last name. Is it Belosier? Said the rumor has the Giants looked at a Geno Smith trade. I can't imagine that being true. The way Smith's time here was so tied to the Eli debacle and the firing of that staff because of that situation, which again, that really was on Mara. He didn't take responsibility for what had happened. I just can't imagine the Giants would have gone that route. And then to give him the deal, the contract that he was trying to get. To finish the veteran pieces. So I think my problem with Wilson is I'm with you. I saw a guy that he needs a lot of I won't say hero ball, but a lot of off schedule stuff to happen in order to even be successful. He's not going to drop back and pass anymore. He takes sacks now when he used to not take sacks. He's short.
He's short. So he has trouble staying past the line. So that's why a lot of
which makes the short passes a lot harder. He's also an over-the-top thrower. So as you're trying, that's a lot harder to throw down shorter. And then imagine you've got a 5'11", and I might be being generous. You got a 5'11" Russell Wilson dropping back, trying to hit 5'8", and again, I'm being generous. Wan'Dale Robinson coming across 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. Not going to
Wan'Dale will disappear from this offense. If they sign Russell Wilson, Wan'Dale will completely disappear. In my opinion, will disappear. And I think Theo Johnson probably doesn't get utilized. But Slayton and Hyatt and Neighbors will love the deep balls. They'll get these deep balls all the time.
The problem with the other veterans that we're talking about, you're kind of in the same boat. They're taller, but their whole game has been around the long ball and the taking deep chances. Winston, Flacco, those guys are deep passers. Winston, he's a little bit more free with the ball than Flacco is, meaning he'll turn it over more than Flacco will. But ultimately, though, both guys will cough the ball up, and they do take deep shots. So your short passing game will suffer some. I think Flacco's a little bit more. He could be more, I don't want to say restrained, but he could be more within the system than I think Winston's going to be more of a guy. He's going to take chances even if it's not the best opportunity.
I like David B's comment about get signed Chad Powers because he's 44. Chad Powers is 44, and we're looking at 41 and 40. Wait, what is Flacco? 40. Flacco's 40, and Rodgers is 41. So what's a few? It's like a geriatric ward at this point.
And the funny thing is that, and I don't know if he's just not bothering to even try anymore, but Ryan Tannehill is still out. No, he hasn't played in the last year. He's still out there. No one seems to even talk about him. So I don't know if he's just giving it up and he's just not playing anymore, but I'd almost take him before I take some of these other guys.
One of the names that's still out there, I don't think he retired. Is Teddy Bridgewater still around?
I think it's either the Lions or go back to coaching. Now, here's the funny thing. The Lions just went and picked up a guy to be their backup. I believe is it Brandon Allen, I believe. Which signals that they might be done with Bridgewater, but it also says that they're not all in on Hendon Hooker either. I think people need to stop throwing the Hendon Hooker trade thing out there. He's done absolutely nothing in the NFL for the Giants to go, yes, let's trade for him. As a development guy, sure, but we don't even have a starter. You can't have a development guy when you don't even have a starter. Milton is a little bit different, but again, he was one game. If you don't want the Maras and the Giants to go full bloom in love draft guy, you don't want to just go pick up Joe Milton because he had one game against a Bills team that wasn't trying to win and think that this guy is just going to be it. If we had a starter, absolutely, I wouldn't mind a guy to develop, but we don't even have a starter. We have Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
We have somebody's fry cook is our current quarterback.
Yeah, Joe, this is Chad Powers. So that was my Chad Powers. All right, let's move to the draft. And then I want to talk about the free agent signings that they've made, because they have made some other free agent signings since we last talked. But the one thing I want to get your opinion on is this: is how sure, or maybe we're not sure, do we think the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward? To me, it looks like because they're not pursuing anyone. Again, you've mentioned that they might be. Who's the quarterback there? Wentz. They might be looking at Wentz. Is that what we last heard?
Yes, that was Wentz.
Because maybe again, he's not a starter. So I'm under the strong opinion, and maybe they're playing poker here, but I'm under the strong impression that they're going to take Cam Ward at number 1. That's my impression. I know we don't know. Do you think that? Are you not sure? Are you?
It's kind of weird because one moment we heard the Titans were talking generational talent, Travis Hunter. Then it became suddenly they're looking at the quarterback. They've made some odd moves overall. They haven't really gone out and they haven't solidified anything outside. Their running back situation is odd as well. I'm trying to bring them up right now. I wanted to see they've signed a couple of guys at quarterback. So
you don't know. So based on nutshell, you don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, they might, but I'm kind of thinking they're holding the They're holding the Giants' feet to the fire.
So
I don't think they're sold on it.
You still think they could? I'm not trying to put you on a spot. You think they could still trade down?
Correct. I think they're hoping to get a 1 next year as well, and other picks.
Would you give up 2 2s to move up to 1? And that's what Daniel Jeremiah was saying yesterday. He said the trade chart right now with a 10% premium because you're moving up to number 1 is 2 2s. The 20% premium, which is often the case, he said would be next year's number 1. But he gave the scenario. Would you? He was asking. He would. So I think this is what we're down to right now. Is do you give up this year's 2 and next year's 2 to move up to get Cam Ward?
So. If you asked me this 2 weeks ago, my answer is no.
Exactly. Now I'm not so sure.
But things have changed though, and there's 2 things that have changed. One, we are kind of desperate, and I don't even care if we get Rodgers or whatever. That's still a possibility. I still want the guy that's going to be long term because we got nobody. The other thing is we got a compensatory pick that was higher than we thought, which essentially gives us 2 3s. You could say it's a top of the 4 if you want to. Doesn't matter.
99th overall.
So we could conceivably use those 2 to move further up in the 3rd or bottom of the 2nd if there was somebody we really wanted. At this point, if I think Cam Ward is the guy, because I have zero idea who's going to be. I know you think differently than me and everybody else does on a lot of this. We have no idea who's going to be in the 2026 draft. You can assume it right now, but you don't know.
And you don't know where you're going to be picking.
Cam Ward, to me, if you think he's that good, if we think he's that good, we don't know what the Giants think. Nobody will know until after the fact. But if they think he's that good, then yes, I give up the 2nd this year, the 2nd next year, and I move up.
You know what's happened is what we talked about. We said if the Giants get the free agency and they don't have a deal done with Aaron Rodgers or Matthews when he was still, theoretically out there, we said Tennessee is going to have the Giants over a barrel. And so we're kind of there right now. And if they're willing to trade, I think the 2 2s you do. I think you do that right now because again, we traded up we gave up a number 1 for Eli and another pick, I think. And that's the cost of winning the Colts game, and you have to swallow your pride, I think, at this point. Now, the huge question is, do the Titans even listen to that offer? And if they say, no, we want your number 1, do you do that? So again, I know. I mean, but that's the boat we're in right now.
Well, what would you do with your scenario you gave me? What would you do? Would you do the 2 2s?
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but a lot of it depends on what my scouts, all my personnel people, and I'm talking about the Dennis Hickeys in the building and the Brandon Browns and my quarterback coach and Dable and everybody thinks of Cam Ward. If they think he's the guy, then what price? It's almost like what GoTerp said. Sometimes we think about winning the draft more than.
I agree with that statement.
So again, I'm fiscally, I'm very conservative, and that impacts my way I look at the draft. I hate giving up picks. I always like trading down and getting more picks because I think the draft is a crapshoot, and especially at quarterback. But I don't think the Giants have a lot of options here unless they say Shedeur Sanders is pretty goddamn good, and they say Jackson Dart is pretty goddamn good. Now, before the people say no, Dart, I've had people, and again, they may be 100% right, maybe 100% wrong, but Dart may end up being the best of the three quarterbacks. Right now we talked about last year. Caleb Williams, I'm not sure you take Caleb Williams number one again. I mean, everyone thought he was the number one quarterback in last year's draft. So again, we don't really know who of the three who's going to be the best. If Jackson Dart, if people in the organization, and the rumor is, I don't know if this is true, Eli likes Jackson Dart a lot. That doesn't mean anything, but if he does, do the Giants like Jackson Dart a lot? There are people out there that really think he's good. There are other people who think, no, he's a second round quarterback. I don't know what they feel about him, but that impacts my decision moving up to number one. Is if Cam Ward goes one, do I think I can still get a pretty darn good quarterback, maybe even a better quarterback in Shedeur or Jackson Dart? And that's where I rely on. But right now, as I'm sitting here as a novice looking outside, I think I'm trying to get Cam Ward. It just depends on the price.
Agreed. First off, I would not throw the 2-2s out there as my first offer. If I'm the Giants, I would literally do this. I would offer, let's flip the spots in 1, so 1 and 3. We will flip the spots in 2, which is only 1 spot. I will give you our 3rd round pick. So not our compensatory, but because the Titans do not have a 3rd round pick.
Wait, what was the first part of that again?
So you flip 1 and 3. So we get 1, they get 3.
All right.
We flip in the 2nd round. Basically, they move up 1. It's not a big deal.
They're not going to do that.
Hold on. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
They don't have a 3rd round pick. I give them our 3rd round pick, and then I give them either the 2nd or the 3rd next year. So I don't give up the 2nd this year, but I switch with them, and I give them our 3rd, and I give them the pick next year. Because again, what you do is, first off, you got to make sure if you want to do anything, you can't act like it's all or nothing for you, because then the other team's got you over a barrel. They're not in a whole lot of better position than we are, by the way. They can't just give up on talent, but they've got a younger quarterback that may or may not make it, and more than likely won't. But they have Levis, and Brandon Allen's the guy that went. There was a different Allen, I think, that went to Detroit. I'd have to look it up. But Brandon Allen, they signed Brandon Allen. He's the other quarterbacks. They have Levis and Allen right now. But they got a coach that I don't think is on solid ground. They got a new GM. The owner is flaky as all hell, and they're trying to build a new stadium. Are they going to risk getting that rookie quarterback this year and have that team suck and have that quarterback look really bad this year? Or would it be better that they get some other talent and look to get a quarterback next year closer to their new stadium time, when they maybe have a whole new coach that they're bringing in? Because this GM came on board late. He's stuck with the guy they already had. So I'm not sold that they're taking a quarterback at 1.
Okay. So if we trade up or try to trade up for Ward, are you in agreement with me that this isn't going to go down until we're on the clock?
Yeah, it won't happen until the draft.
So, which would make Inside BBI on draft night must watch, because you and I will be going, oh my God, what's going on? You got to make this trade. I mean, I think the Titans are going to milk this, don't you? They're going to wait.
Well, yeah, because they can't.
The last second.
The only way that it works now is if the Giants are so desperate that they just give you everything, and the Giants aren't going to do that now. That's really stupid. So the Giants really at this point are just in a waiting game. So they're going to wait. The Titans are going to play it as long as they can. They want to see how the quarterback thing falls out too, by the way. If Pittsburgh doesn't, let's say Rodgers retires, right, and that is a possibility.
Yep.
That means Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback still. Even if they go get Wilson, they don't have a quarterback. The Giants don't have a quarterback. Cleveland is up in the air. They got Kenny Pickett. Watson's not going to play this year. Then you've got Tennessee's there. So now you've got and then let's not forget, the Jets have Justin Fields, but come on, are you banking everything? And then there's the Raiders. They have Smith, probably not, but you're in a position potentially to get a guy. So if I'm the Titans, I'm going to milk that as long as possible, because if I'm pretty solid with Ward, then there's no reason for me to take any deal until that night. And you might be willing to overpay because you're desperate. And if you don't, I take Ward and I just move on with my draft. But if you overpay, I take that deal. It's not going to happen until draft night.
But it's going to be like a Corsi on during the Manning draft. Not that they'll make the pick and then trade it. But what I'm saying, it's going to be, remember, they were on the clock and they were going back and forth, and Corsi didn't know if it was going to happen. So it's going to be one of those deals.
Well, it'd be the Titans on the clock.
I mean, right. I mean, yeah. But it's going to be one of those deals where it's probably going to go down to the last minute. So we'll all be so. And I think that's more likely to happen if we don't get Rodgers. I think it's more likely. All right. Now, say Titans don't want to trade Rodgers. Okay. Can you play the clip?
You mean number? Oh, you mean
say Titans take. I mean, Rodgers.
Yeah. No,
Titans take Cam Ward. Okay, say they take Cam Ward. What now? Pick number 2. Can you play that clip?
Sure.
In all seriousness, do you know who the quarterback's going to be? I mean, do you have an idea?
After conversations, I do have an idea.
Okay. Do you like the idea?
I like it enough to be here smiling in front of you, because I think we have a good chance of that happening and making the most out of it.
Can you tell us who it is, Myles?
You know I can't do that.
So what's interesting is the Cleveland Browns organization tweeted that out. So are they playing poker, or what are they doing with that? Why are they sending that out? Are they basically but if they're not playing, I mean, if they are playing poker, then what the hell did they tell Myles Garrett to make Myles Garrett act that way? I mean, that's a pretty good acting job if they're bluffing.
It's a big leap of faith to think he's talking about the draft only, because the
you
rumors.
You think that's Cousins?
Well, the rumors have been that Cousins was a guy that they might trade for. If I'm Myles Garrett, do I sit there and be like, yeah, I'm pretty confident about the quarterback because we might draft Shedeur Sanders?
I don't know, but do you get like that with Kirk Cousins?
Well, but at least I know the guy's played in the league and I know he's put up stuff. But I'm not sold that it's just. So I'll say this: there's something really weird going on in San Francisco. Very strange. I'm getting a kind of a weird vibe with those guys that Purdy is not the guy that they want to give $50 million a year to. And if the 49ers are not that far from the top of the draft, that if they were to package, say, I don't know, Purdy and Ayuk and some picks to move up to a team like Cleveland, who could have Purdy at a very cost-effective year while they're paying still a ton of money for Watson, they can redo his deal for the long term if they want to. Don't be surprised if San Francisco makes a trade, and don't be surprised if it's Purdy that gets traded.
Let me ask you this: do you think Myles Garrett is lying?
I think he's embellishing.
Do you think he well, let me put it this way: do you think he's been told something that would cause? I'm not trying to put you on a spot. I'm saying, do you think he's actually been told something that causes him to smile like that?
Yeah. Here's $40 million a year.
No. But he seems to be saying,
I'm not buying.
Told me that something, and it's good. I mean, so is he lying?
Let me ask you. Well, like I said, I think he's embellishing. Well, let me ask you this: if I tell you, right, I'm the owner of the Browns. Right. You're Eric, but you're better than Myles Garrett. You told me that you want to trade. You're pissed. You don't want to be here. You wanted to meet with me. I didn't meet with you all of a sudden.
Right.
The next thing you know,
what the fuck was that too?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. The next thing you know, I'm giving you a contract offer that makes you the highest paid defensive player in the league, I believe, in league history. And now you're going to come out and say that they told me who's going to be the quarterback, and I know who it's going to be. Bullshit.
But that's what I'm saying. What was that?
It's embellishment. It's just.
But do you think they told him to go out there and perform like that, or do you think he's reacting to something that he thinks he knows?
How did they know what the question was going to be ahead of time?
I don't know. And why did the organization tweet that out? So I don't know. I'm just asking.
I think it shows.
I'm not sure what to make out of that.
Because I think it shows. Because here's the thing, right? The Browns want a smiling, happy Myles Garrett telling people. Because 2 weeks before he told everybody he was done.
No doubt. But
that's why.
Acting? Was that acting?
I think he's embellishing that they know what they're doing. I do.
No,
I think it was related. And I think it's related. I think it was related to Kirk Cousins or a trade for another quarterback within the league.
I just don't know if that kind of Kirk Cousins.
Because why would Shedeur Sanders set the world on fire for him?
I don't think it. I'm not saying Purdy can't end up there, but I don't think they would have told him they're going to get Purdy.
But if I told you you're getting Shedeur Sanders, do you think that's making?
I don't know. That's what I don't know.
But I know. But that's what I'm saying. I'm asking you. Would that make you, if you were Myles Garrett, go? I know what we're doing. I feel pretty good about Shedeur Sanders.
That's my problem. Is I don't do that for Cousins or Shedeur if I'm Garrett. So I don't know why he.
I think I think he's just embellishing that he's thrilled that he got $40+ million a year to come back and play.
Okay, all right. So. Do we think there's a good chance Cleveland takes a quarterback at 2?
If they don't trade, it's possible.
That's a safe answer. Yeah, and I'm there too. I'm there too. No,
they picked up Kenny Pickett, right? So they know they have a guy who's at least played in the league. He's not great, but I mean, quite frankly, he's better than some of the other quarterback options out there. If he kind of reins in some of his turnover stuff, I think Pittsburgh kind of did him a little bad there. They can get by just through playing with him. They're going to play. They're going to go run heavy. That's kind of what they do. If you can go get a superstar for the Browns, because you just tied up a lot of money with Myles Garrett. You better bring somebody in who can contribute. I'm thinking if Titans don't take Travis Hunter is going to the Browns.
What do you do if you're the Giants right now? Who do you want to fall to 3 for the Giants?
Well, I've said before, Carter's kind of my guy, but I'm really worried
Given the quarterback situation right now, who do you?
Yeah, because okay. So that's the big thing, right? We don't have one, so now you're stuck. I can't take Dart at 3. That's way too high when you've got potentially all pro players sitting there. I'm not as big on Hunter as other people, but I can't deny his talent. Carter, I am big on. You could even say a Mason Graham would be a defense changer far more than Dart at quarterback at 3 right there. Because I just think if you throw him in, he's screwed.
Here, you're a historian of the New York Giants.
Sure.
During your lifetime, have the Giants ever been in a situation where they've been this desperate for a quarterback because they don't have one on the roster? I mean, again, I'm going to say at times they had Kent Graham or Danny Cannell or Dave Brown or they had somebody that, again, they weren't good, but they had somebody who could come in and play a game. I can't recall a time, as me being a Giants fan, where we had one quarterback on the roster. It was an undrafted rookie free agent and nobody else to even turn to. That's why this is, to me, and maybe you can think of another time, but to me, this is brand new territory for me because there's desperate and then there's desperate, and we're beyond desperate right now.
Yeah, since the change of where free agency became a thing, right? So we're talking late 80s. Plan B free agency came in.
Right.
Ultimately, the thing gets changed over where it becomes free agency as we see it today, or at least the version that became what we see today. So before yeah, right. So that's good. That was good. So before that, you had prior to Phil, and then with Phil, because of his kind of, people really forget that if Phil Simms' career, if he started in the time frame we're in now, with the contracts the way that they are, the way free agency is, the way that teams don't own players until they don't want them anymore, it's more finite. Phil's career started a lot like Daniel Jones. There was some highlights. There were some highlights. There were some really bad plays, and there were lots of injuries. He had multiple shoulder separations. He tore his knee up.
Broke his thumb.
He broke his thumb in '83, and that's after he was already benched for Scott Bruner, for God's sake. So to answer your question, if you go more modern with free agency,
he had a quarterback though.
But if you go more modern with free agency, You're going to count Dave Brown. I'm not going to. Dave Brown sucked. So you had Dave Brown and Kent Graham, and it was getting kind of Once we kind of got off Dave Brown, then you had Danny Cannell still and Kent Graham, and that's when we picked up Kerry Collins off the scrap heap. But the Giants didn't expect him to come in and be the starter. They were just hoping to get something out of him.
But we were able to get Kerry Collins. I think you have to go back to kind of what Jeff's talking here. Maybe that
thing, yes.
So, I guess what my point here with asking you that question is, there's desperate, and then there's desperate, and to me, it's like I can't remember a time when we've had one quarterback under contract that you can't even really. I mean, I think there's a really good chance Tommy DeVito's not even on this team, right? There's a reasonable chance he's not on the team.
Yeah, I think the only reason he's there right now is because we have absolutely nobody else.
So we don't have quarterbacks 1 and 2 right now. As a Giants fan, I don't ever remember a time this has happened. So the reason why I'm setting this up is I agree with everybody in the chats, and there's comment after comment after comment. The logical, sane thing to do if Ward goes 1 and Shedeur goes 2 is to take Carter or Hunter or trade down. But that's the sane, logical thing to do. I am worried that if painted themselves into such a corner, they're going to do something stupid because they can't take the risk that Dart is going to get past some of the other teams that are behind them, not just behind them, but other teams that might then trade up in front of them. Again, right. And you can say, take that risk. It's not a big risk. That's easy for all of us to say because we're not in their shoes. And if they come out of this draft, if all of us are sitting here on April 24th at midnight, and the starting quarterback of the New York Giants, the two guys on the roster at the end of the 24th are Joe Flacco and Tommy DeVito. We're in deep shit. And Shane and Dable are in deep shit. That's my concern, is that they almost feel like they have to do something for hope to create a sense of hope there. That's my fear. So
don't give me hope.
Do we still have that clip? I can't.
I thought I added it, but
I know I thought you did too. I don't see it here. Do you have it?
Let me take a look real quick.
And the airplane quote, the airplane one's gone too, isn't it?
I took the airplane one out.
I shouldn't have told you to do that.
Yeah,
I need the airplane one back. That was my fault. We have to put that.
Yeah, I'll have to go through. I don't remember.
Okay, hope's a dangerous thing, guys.
Yeah.
Quoting Shawshank, hope's a dangerous thing. But that, to me, and people have seen my point of view on the website. I am not advocating for that. I'm just saying, what do you do? What are they going to do? Because the response I'm seeing is, well, you take Carter or you take Hunter at 3, and you just trade back up into the first round and get Dart. Well, how do you know that you can do that? How do you know he's not gone at 12, at 10, at 21? How do you know someone doesn't trade up for him and he's off the board? And again, I keep bringing this up, but it's true. No one thought 6 quarterbacks were going to go in the first 12 picks last year. So we don't know where Dart's going to go. I'm not advocating for Dart at 3. I'm just saying I can see the Giants doing something like that. If Eli says he's a really good quarterback and the scouts say he's as good as Shedeur Sanders, I could see them doing something like that. If I'm the Giants, do I risk trading down more than like Seattle? Because the Jets pick at 6, right? Who picks at 6? No, Raiders.
6 is the Raiders. 7 is the Jets.
Raiders pick at 6. People have said the Raiders won't go quarterback because they got Geno Smith now. I'm not convinced that they
I'm not convinced either. Yeah. I'm
not 100%. And can Shane and Dable take that risk? That's my point. People don't want to think about that because it sounds terrible. But that's the boat we're in right now, and that's kind of why Rodgers makes a little bit sense to me, because he prevents you from maybe doing something forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. And I don't ever remember the Giants being in this position before.
I'm just taking a look real quick. because you mentioned it earlier about the Saints. And let's say real quick.
Steelers are at 21, right? Wait,
no, Steelers are in top. Steelers are in the top 10, I believe. Let me.
Oh, look at this.
The Steelers. Where the hell are
What
they?
Sky just said. That's interesting. Him and Ward.
You're right. Steelers are 21. Sorry, Steelers are 21. They're pretty low. Yeah, I mean, you could jump ahead of them. That it would take quite a bit. So go back. I want to look at the Saints real quick because of the new deal that Carr has. If they trade him pre-June 1st, which is you would have to do in order because it'd have to be before the draft, and or the Giants couldn't take that chance. The cap hit for the Saints would be $58 million. There's no way they can. There's no way they can do that.
I think Carr's off the table, and I don't want Cousins here, but I guess it depends on what the cost is. But I'm not a. I want to fix this I want to fix this in the draft. The best case scenario to me for the New York Giants is this: Titans are bluffing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to add one thing real quick. So right now, Kirk Cousins, and I'm assuming we're almost at a 4:00 hour, so I don't really know how this might change it.
Yeah, I posted that earlier. He's getting a $10 million. Yeah.
If they cut him now pre-June 1, which they said they're not going to do, if they cut him, they lose $25 million on the cap. If they trade him, however, they gain $2.5 million in cap space. So while they'll have dead money, and again, I don't give a shit about
you say before 4:00, so the next.
I don't know if it'll affect the 4. I'm just saying the 4:00 probably changes it some because it makes it a guaranteed money. But either way, a trade though, and that's why the Falcons didn't cut them. They'd have to eat a whole bunch of the cap space, and whether this year or if they did it post June 1st, they eat the bulk of it next year. They're hoping a team wants to trade for him is really what it comes down to. That frees up the most cap space for them, and they get a return on it. Right. Other than that, it's a sunk cost, and you got basically nothing for him.
All right, good or bad, he goes to Cleveland for the Giants. He goes to Cleveland, that's good, right?
Unless it's the Giants that are desperate and they do it.
Yeah, but are you rooting for that? I'm rooting for him.
No, but I'm just saying, you just threw it out there. Who's left? And I'm like, shit, we're running out of options.
But I'm focused on the draft. What I want, to me, the best case scenario is this for the Giants. Titans are bluffing. They intend to take Carter or Hunter. Next case, and then this is the best case scenario. And then the Browns don't go quarterback because they have Cousins or they're punting. And then the Giants have their choice of Cam Ward and Shedeur or Dart. And I think we're all assuming they would go Cam Ward at that point. But that's the best case scenario. The next best case scenario is Ward does end up going at either 1 or 2, and the Giants, but the other team goes another route, and the Giants are left with Shedeur or Dart at 2, and they get the pick between those two. To me, that's the best case scenario. If you want to fix the quarterback situation, there are still people out there who say, don't pass on Hunter or Carter, or whoever's left, don't pass on them. I don't think the Giants can do that right now. That's where I am right now. I think they've got to give the fan base in their mind, John Mara, Shane and Dable have to give the Giant fan base hope. And hope's a powerful thing.
So
that's where I'm at right now.
Before I get onto a whole different hopeful subject.
Yes.
If both those guys you just mentioned fall through, Sanders, Dart, they're both sitting there at 3.
Right.
If Jacksonville at 5 offered you a deal so they could move up because they're not interested in the quarterback, would you drop the 2 spots and expect that at least one of those 2 guys probably is going to make it to 5?
I would take that risk because I don't think New England passes on, and I don't think because of that, I don't think New England trades down at that point. So that I would probably do. I mentioned this on the website. The only one that I think I might trade down with is Jacksonville, is because I'm not worried about New England at that spot. But it's a risk. You never know.
Because New England could trade with somebody else.
New England could trade with somebody else. So, but then if you're saying both those quarterbacks are there,
you're
then
still getting one of them.
Guaranteed to get one of those quarterbacks.
Yes. That's my thought. Is
the only time, because of the desperation mode the Giants are in, if you argue that they've got to come out with a quarterback in this draft because they're not going to get one in free agency, the only team I see trading down with is Jacksonville. If Jacksonville wants to trade up for Hunter or Carter at that point.
So back to where we first started this.
So they may, one of those two may be gone. So maybe not.
So
I'd have
if
to
you
think about that.
so let's go back to where we started with all of this. Let's just the 3 quarterbacks in the draft: Ward, Sanders, Dart. It doesn't matter what order you have them in. Those 3 guys. If 2 of those guys are there, that trade to 5 makes a lot of sense, and it's the reason why the Giants cannot trade now, other than going to 1 and giving up a whole bunch, because if you have them fairly close together, if the difference between Ward and, let's say Dart is 3rd, right? Let's say he's the 3rd of the 3 quarterbacks for the Giants. But if the difference is minimal between Ward and Dart, you're like, Ward's a little better, but we have Dart right here. You don't move up. You sit there because at 3, you're guaranteed of getting one of those guys. If 2 of them are there, now you have options to go. I could drop down 1 or 2 spots if somebody wants to move up. If they want to get Hunter, if he's still there. If they want to get Carter, if he's still there. If they want to get Graham, if he's still there. I only move with guys that aren't going to look to get a quarterback.
Right, but the fly in the ointment is this. Again, you're guaranteed to get one of the 2 guys, but because Jacksonville presumably is moving up to take Carter or Hunter, whoever's left,
right?
Then New England misses out on that guy that's left. Because New England.
Well, you got to assume, first off, you got to assume one of those guys is already gone. You got to assume at 2, if the 2 quarterbacks are there, one of those guys is gone.
New England is praying this scenario happens, that Carter or Hunter are there. So they're hoping the quarterbacks go early. But if Jacksonville trades up with us and takes the last of Hunter or Carter, and then they may be more willing to trade back down themselves. So
I'm not sold on New England's interest per se. One, they need another receiver. So McMillan certainly is a possibility. Big time, big guy, gives May a target to go after. Graham is there, and keep in mind, who's the coach? Mike Vrabel.
Right.
The Tennessee Titans had a very solid interior set of defensive tackles, and they had a rotating set of edges. Bud Dupree, then it became Harold Landry. They had different guys on the outside, but their D tackles were the force of that defense. They were able to get pressure up the middle, and the outside guys were able to play off that. New England doesn't really have a stud D line right now. They were playing the Belichick years of whatever that mix and match 3-4, whatever he did. Vrabel's far more going to be, he's going to be a little more set in how they line up. They could be looking at a Graham right there very easily. Carter, if Carter doesn't go to the Browns, let's say Hunter goes to the Browns. Let's go Ward 1, Hunter 2. Now you've got Sanders and Dart sitting there at 3. You've got Carter sitting there. You've got Graham sitting there. You got McMillan sitting there. There's 2 teams right below us. The lowest I would go is 5 in this scenario. I move with Jacksonville. You've got to assume Jacksonville's going after it. You would think it would be Carter, but I don't know that that's where their big need would be per se, but it could be. There's also, by the way, there could be a team that is going to be really interested in jumping up to get Warren, the tight end. That's really high, though. That's really high.
So let's role play here. So if you're the New York Football Giants and you're the new GM, Joe Shane had gotten fired, Brian Dable had gotten fired. Say they had gotten fired.
My dream job.
And you're picking at 3, would you have taken Carter or Hunter?
If I'm only picking those 2, it's Carter. I'm taking Carter.
Yeah, but I know you don't like Hunter, but say
no, but it's not just that I don't like him. Right. It's and then I shouldn't say I don't. It's not that I dislike him. I think he has his physical stature is kind of average. I don't know what he changes our defense to at the moment, especially after we just spent a bunch of money on a corner that we brought in. We spent a bunch of money on a safety. I'm not sold on Kayvon Thibodeau's ability to be that guy past this year. If I bring in Carter, I've changed the outs. I've changed my pass rush completely.
Right. I know how you feel about Carter, but let's assume Hunter also is what they say he is, and he's a shutdown corner. Say your views are different, and you think he's a shutdown corner. Would you have taken one of those two over the quarterback if you are the new GM and you've got more than 1 year.
Yeah, if I have more than 1 year, then I'm not rolling the dice on a quarterback that's iffy when I can take a superstar.
Right. That's what I would do too.
Yes.
Given that you're Joe Shane right now, do you feel like your hands are tied a little bit? And if two of those three quarterbacks are there at 3, you've got to take one or trade down slightly and get one of those guys. In other words, if you come out of this and Rodgers is not on the roster, if Rodgers is not there, it's Joe Flacco's on this roster with Tommy DeVito, and you're on the clock and you can either trade down slightly or you're 3. Do you take the quarterback because you feel like you got to save your job? Be honest. Or do you roll the dice? Do you roll the dice and try? You're okay with maybe Milroe or McCord or Ewers later on in the draft.
What have we seen from Joe Shane so far? In trades that we've seen, we go get a guy. We trade picks to get a guy, or we trade picks to move up.
Right.
We don't see him trade down.
Correct.
And that's the fear. He doesn't really.
He did one. Didn't he 1 year to recoup a pick because he traded up? I think wasn't there one year he did.
But we're talking
later in the
draft. First, second round.
Yeah.
He doesn't move down and acquire picks. We've done other things. We moved up. We made sure we got Banks. He traded picks to get players. He doesn't seem like a guy that feels confident in the moving down. He feels more confident in his aggressive nature of going after whatever he wants. With that said, I don't see him moving. Should he? I would move down slightly if I thought I could get one of two guys. But we also might be completely desperate, and you can't even risk anything at that point if we don't have anybody. I don't see him moving down. I see him taking them. So my question to you is, who do you take if those two guys are there? Sanders, Dart, trade down's not an option. Who do you, Eric, take?
Well, before we get that, and I'll answer that. It sounds like I'm avoiding that question, which I kind of want to do.
Son of a.
But this is a key point. So Mara, in a way, people have heard me badmouth Mara left and right. Mara could actually save the Giants here from doing something stupid, but it depends. See, this is the key question, and this came up on the website today. How short a leash do Shane and Dable really have? We're under the impression that they're on a very short leash. Right. Does John Mara does John Mara look at the situation right now and know that this might not work out the way we hoped and say, you know what, we're not going to pass on the better player, and I understand that, and we may get stuck with a quarterback that's not going to fix the problem, and we'll address it next year. Does he do that? And how comfortable do Shane and Dable really believe in that promise that you have a longer leash here? That's what I'm struggling with right now. Is I don't know how short a leash is there really. What kind of internal discussions have the Giants had? Let's be honest. Most teams fire coaches like crazy. There's a third to a quarter turnover every offseason now, and coaches and offensive and defensive coordinators. They get fired like crazy. Right. So I wouldn't be very comfortable if I'm Shane or Dable believing a promise even at this point, because people start flying planes overhead like crazy. Nobody's in the stands again and the Giants look like they're headed for another winless year in the division. And the Boo Birds are worse than they are last year. And worse, people they don't even care anymore. He may have to fire them no matter what. That's where I don't know how long a leash they have. If they feel like they've got a longer leash, then I think they can take the better player. But I kind of feel like they're stuck. Because I keep coming back to this. There's nobody on the roster right now. I've never seen this before. So that's where I'm struggling. So to answer your question.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask.
Right, I was filibustering to hopefully you'd forget what the question was.
At least you didn't go into like a long diatribe on Star Wars.
I have started looking at the quarterbacks, and maybe Cy can weigh in on this. One of the things I heard was Dart doesn't attack the ball down the field, but throw the ball down the field. But the first thing I pull up, because I always do this, and this is the wrong way to look at quarterbacks. You got to look at the whole games. First thing I do is I pull up the highlights of Dart. I pull up the highlights of Shedeur, because I just want to get a feel for the way they throw the ball. What's the spiral like? How do they throw? And the highlights were Dart throwing the ball deep. So I don't know where he doesn't throw the ball. And I get the Lane Kiffin criticism. I get that. So part of me is intrigued by Dart, and I've wondered if Dart is closer to Shedeur than people want to admit. And they don't want that to get out there because they don't want people they don't want people to move up for Dart, because they really like Dart. But right now, if you're going with what's out there, I'm probably picking Shedeur, simply because of the charisma factor. I think he gets a bad rap. I don't think he's the diva that people make him out to be. He's actually supposedly, believe it or not, supposed to be more of an introvert. And I think he's a hard worker, and I think he's more of an overachiever than people give him credit for. But I'll tell you, in the Lane Kiffin thing, is what scares me with Dart right now, is that you can't find a Lane Kiffin quarterback that's done well. And Si's brought this up before. You can't find a Lane Kiffin guy who's done well in the NFL. So I'm leaning towards Shedeur if Cam Ward's not there. And that's kind of out of a desperation at this point, too, that he'll give you, at least he'll make the team interesting. He'll make you want to watch the New York Giants to see what will happen. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, blank that, screw you, no way, keep him off the team. But I think the Giants are in that position right now that they've got to bring somebody in and take a swing and pray that the guy ends up being the next great quarterback for the New York Giants. And that's where I am right now, because right now I can't get excited. Even if they brought in Rodgers, I can't really get terribly excited about this. Rodgers would make the Giants interesting too, but maybe not in a good way. But I need somebody out there that I'm like, at least we've got somebody that makes them watchable, that you see if the guy can develop. And that's kind of where I am right now. I want Carter too. But if you got Carter, what difference does it make if you don't have a quarterback?
I look at the Rodgers thing differently. I think if you bring him on board, the one place it brings excitement is the one place it doesn't matter for you, me, and anybody in chat and anything else. And that's within the Giants locker room. That's within other players who go, hey, wait a minute. We went and got Rodgers. It doesn't matter whether we think he's on the downside of his career. There are players in that locker room who have been surrounded by absolute crap at quarterback, and Rodgers is a well-known name. And you know what else it brings a lot of these players? It brings more attention, and usually not negative attention. It's all of a sudden the full bloom, rose-colored glass look at the team, just like the Jets did when Rodgers came on board. And look at what Peter Schrager had to say, and he's been kind of knocking the Giants a little bit, but literally he went through and he said, you know what, this team isn't as far away as you think with a competent quarterback. They have more talent on that roster. I saw another person talk about it, and I want to say it's Colin Cowherd was mentioning, if he was looking at it, if he was Rodgers, the Giants have better talent overall on their offense than the Steelers do. Besides Pickens and Metcalf, who do the Steelers have at wide receiver? Calvin Austin III? Van Jefferson? I mean, they're not exactly like household names that are going to set the world on fire. You've got a Malik Neighbors, a young guy who played with absolute shit at quarterback and put up really good numbers. What if you give him a really good quarterback? Slayton's a proven veteran. Now, here's the thing. This is why I think the Giants are really buying in still on getting that veteran. I don't think you bring back Slayton if you're not doing that. That ensures the fact that, because other than that, if you're not sure, you don't know who you're going to end up with, you just let Jalen Hyatt move up. And if he makes it, he makes it. He doesn't cost you that much money, and you move on. They went and made sure they brought him back. You're surprised. I'm surprised. People covering it were surprised.
Darius Slayton said he was surprised. Darius said he was surprised. He said he didn't expect to come back. He said it in the press conference this week. I didn't expect to come back here.
I would still explore trade options if I can't get Rodgers. I don't really want Wilson, but at some point you got to take whoever's left. And again, don't forget the Steelers are in the same boat as us. Rodgers is not, it's not just that Rodgers is sticking it to the Giants. Rodgers is sticking it to the Steelers too.
Oh, I know that. I know. He's being a dick right now. Pick a team.
But is he?
Yes. Yeah, he's being a dick.
Why?
Because he knew this was coming up. He
Yeah,
knew
but
the
why?
team-
But why? The
Kick it to me.
Giants time frame and the Steelers time frame has nothing to do with what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. It's not his fault that we're so desperate that we're trying to get him. He can sit back and do whatever the hell he wants.
I think he look. I'm again.
Look,
I
I
get
want
it.
him too, by the
I
way.
get it, but I do think he owes those teams the consideration to get back to them and give them an answer. It's the same thing if somebody was offered me a job someplace, but I'm old school. If I was interviewing for a job at 3 places, I feel like I need to get back to those people if they've offered me the job and say, sorry, I'm not interested. I feel like I don't let them hanging.
But what's the difference in the scenario that you just said, besides the money and all that other shit? What's the
A
difference?
lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I'm not a dick.
But what's the difference? No. Well, listen, that's a different show.
Look, what's the difference? What's the
difference? The difference is you applied for the job. Aaron Rodgers is applying to the Giants. The Giants are begging Aaron Rodgers, please come to us. We'll throw you money. The Pittsburgh Steelers are like, ouch, that hurt. The Pittsburgh Steelers are throwing money going, please come to us. He's sitting going, I don't have to do anything. I don't even know if I want to play. Now, I think he's being a diva.
But that's a bad sign, John. That's a horrible sign.
For us. And for the Steelers, but not for you. Can't blame Aaron Rodgers for that.
I can blame him.
I can, but I mean that's the Giants' fault. But the other thing
I don't like this. But
sucks. The other thing is, if he does want the money, the Giants and the Steelers can do that. One of the two teams can draw a line in the sand and say, "This is the date. If you take it past this, we've moved on. Go play for the Steelers. If you don't want our money, which we know is more." Bye-bye. That's what I would do. I would draw a line in the sand that says, I'm willing to walk away from this and say, I'm going to go in a different direction. By the way,
How long do you wait? You wait another week?
No, in fact, I said this in BBI, bigblueinteractive.com. I have a weird feeling this is what it's about. When Rodgers does it, it's going to be right before the NCAA basketball tournament begins. Why? Because once the tournament begins, then his thing gets kind of lost in the wash and he signs with somebody and football fans will follow it. But the mainstream sports is going to be really tied into the tournament. So it's a big time. It's a money thing. It's all this other stuff. If I drop that information the day before, it's being talked about constantly during that tournament. It's already out there. I suspect that Rodgers will do it this week if he has any intention of playing for the Giants. And
and I'm bringing Kevin. Now I'm putting that up is we talked about this early in the show, and I know people are probably coming in and out because we've been on so long. But yeah, we fully discussed that he's an attention whore. We completely agree, and that's part of the problem I'm having with him right now. Look, if the Giants weren't in this situation, I don't think we'd even be talking about Rodgers. John.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. Without a doubt.
I don't think John would. I wouldn't. I'd be like, blank. No, I'm not bringing Rodgers. I don't want anything to do with them. There's
a reason why they went after Matthew Stafford first. They knew Rodgers was going to get cut. That was already announced right at the end of the season. The Jets were moving on. They went right after Stafford first. They wanted Stafford. Rodgers is the lesser of the two options that are left. Rodgers, Wilson.
Yeah, and Trainmaster, we did that in the last show. We said it's just like the decision.
Oh my God, I hated that.
The minute I saw that, I was like, oh my God, because I was like, anyway.
So would you? I brought this up before, but I looked at the numbers. Would you, and I don't know what the compensation would be, so let's not worry about that. Would you trade with the Cardinals for Kyler Murray if that was a possibility? Because he does, if he gets traded, he saves them over almost $15 million on their cap. They would have to move. They would move up, by the way. It would be the one. So they would pick third. We would drop. They would come way up. So you got to know you're moving way down. But
I would if the trade compensation wasn't bad. So if they're trying to dump him, I'm not. Look, if they come to me and they say we want your second round pick, I'm not giving them my second round pick. But if you'd
have to give them your first. We'd have to switch with ones. There's no way they're going to give it for a two.
No, then I'm not doing it because
I would absolutely.
Murray's the answer. I don't think he's the answer.
He's better
all you're doing is you're prolonging the inevitable. I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people.
I disagree.
I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people crazy. I don't think anyone on this planet is good at judging NFL prospects coming out of the draft. I don't think anyone can pick these guys, even the best GMs out there. I think it's a crapshoot. I just want them. I don't want them to be ridiculous about him. I don't want them to take Milroe in the first round. I don't want them to, take McCord in the first round. But I think I will not be devastated if the Giants take Jackson Dart at 3. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, I want to hold on to my number 1 next year in case, again, you get hold of any of these quarterbacks and they're absolute turds. Worst case scenario, you can do this. You can draft somebody again next year. Giants have never done this. They've never gotten on a quarterback that quickly, but teams do it now after 2 years. You don't have to go. And part of me is like, you don't know. The guy, if you got a first-round grade on all 3 of these guys, and I don't know if they do, but if the Giants have a first-round grade on all these guys, don't risk losing him by trading down a bunch of, assuming he's going to be there. Just get your guy and hope you got the right guy and move forward. What I do know after seeing him is Kyle Murray's not going to solve our problems. I'm thinking about, we got to beat the Washington Commanders. We got to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, contend for the division with them for the next 6 years, 7, 8 years. I don't see how Murray does that for us. Is he better than what we've had? Sure, but that to me that we're still competing for 3rd or 4th place in the division with him within our. I'm hoping Dart or Shador or Cam can be the Jaden Daniels at that point. That's what I'm trying to get, the next great New York Giants quarterback, the next Phil Simms, the next Eli Manning. I'm trying to get the Wyatt Tittle. I'm trying to get that guy. That's who I'm trying to get. And I know Wyatt Tittle was a trade, but you know.
But outside of War, do you really think that you can say that Sanders and Dart could be that guy? I mean,
I have no idea.
That's a huge expectation because, quite frankly, and again, you're right. Anybody can say anything. But in my 50 years of watching football, following the draft, following players, I wouldn't put any one of the top three guys in this draft. I wouldn't even put them in the top 3. They would be 4, maybe 5 from last year, and that's before we saw Nix play during the regular season. I would have had him maybe slotted ahead of Nix coming out as a prospect, but seeing what Nix did, I would be like, if you compared what they did already the first season, these guys are dropping below. None of them.
I think we focus too much with quarterbacks on tangible skill traits. So I think we all look, and understandably, we look at arm strength, we look at height, we look at mobility, we look at, physical stature. I think we look at all those things. To me, the great quarterbacks in the league, some of them have that. The John Elway's had that. And Dan Marino had a rocket arm with the quickest release that I've ever seen in my life. But so many of the quarterbacks have the timing, the accuracy, the feel for the game, the ability. What used to bother me, and I threw this example out earlier, and I'm not saying Tony Romo is a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Again, I'd put him on I'd take him in a heartbeat on this team because our team is.
That's for sure.
But one of the things that used to drive me nuts about Tony Romo is that you used to think you had him sacked. You had him you had him. And somehow he got out of there. He got away from Justin Tucker. He got away from Michael Strahan. And he made a 3rd and 9 throw that you were like, Jesus, to Witten. It was always the effing Witten. And when I watch Shador Sanders, I see a lot of that. He gets out of I know he takes a lot of sacks, and there's this whole thing where he's drifting back. But I see a lot of Romo, good Romo, in Sanders' game. So so I'm not always hyped. I'm not always completely focused on these tangible traits. Like, I was watching highlights of Milroe. My God, if you want to talk about a guy that you would, if he could just throw the football, Milroe's like a tank when he carries the football. Holy hell, if you were going to get a dream quarterback, who wants to tackle Milroe? And then when you miss him, he goes for a 70-yard run. He would be, if you could teach him to throw the football, you would take Milroe in a heartbeat, but the guy can't throw, and he was like that at the Senior Bowl practices. I think later in the practice, on the Thursday practice, he was better, but the same thing showed up in the Senior Bowl practice that showed up in the season. And I think Size talked about this, is he misses the layups. So I'm being long-winded here. So what I'm telling you is I don't get caught up in the tangible traits as much as other people do. And maybe that's a mistake on my part, but I want a quarterback that can deliver the football with accuracy and timing in a big situation when the game is on the line. That's what I want.
It's legit, but you did describe Tony Romo based on what he ultimately did in the pros, but he was an undrafted free agent.
Right.
So,
but if you had to go over again, Tony Romo would not have been. If you had to do it over again, Tony Romo would have been a first-round draft pick.
But Shadir Sanders right now, we're talking about taking him with the 3rd pick in the draft.
Yep.
With a guy who's going to come in with a lot of expectation, not on him, but him on the situation. A lot of expectation what's going to be around him. A lot of what his father is going to expect to be around him. There's going to be a lot of other stuff, a lot of scrutiny that's going to come. That's going to be really, really weird. It's not that I'm against taking him, but I'm concerned that there's far more hype built into him than what we've seen production-wise. And then it's like, if it goes south, it's going to go south very badly in a way that's more than just we lose games.
Well, I think Shedeur is wired to handle New York. I will also say this about Cam Ward. The little that I've seen on him, he seems to be also wired the way you want him to be wired.
Yeah.
He's
solid dude. Yep.
Football is way important to him. He lives and breathes football, and so the good news about these guys that we're talking about is they actually have the personality, I think, to handle New York. I don't know about Dart, if Dart can handle New York, but all reports I've seen on him is, again, he's the kind of guy that when you go in and meet with him, teams are going to come out of that meeting and they're going to say they're impressed with him. So the good news is on Ward, Shedeur, and Dart is the personalities are there, I think. And what I don't worry about with Shedeur is I think he can handle New York. I know what you're getting at is there a circus with his father involved? And that...
Well, there'll be added pressure. There will be added pressure. I think Shedeur is built to handle New York. I have a real hard time believing that the Giants under Mara and the family is really designed to handle Shedeur and everything that comes with him as the quarterback. They had a hard time with Beckham. By the way, I thought Beckham went off the rails, so that's fine. But they had a hard time with Beckham, very quickly. Mm-hmm. It became really hard to deal with all his stuff. You're going to have to manage that. And I'm not saying he's going to bring the crazy that Beckham brought, but he's going to bring a lot of stuff that comes with him. And I think the expectation, though, the eye on things become very quickly. I hate to bring it up because I really dislike the guy, but look at what Ryan Clark started with his crap about the whole thing with Shedeur. People bringing stuff up and it's racist. That's what he brought up. It's racist, which is weird because Ward is a black quarterback and he could go number 1 and nobody's saying anything about that. That's the problem that I see, though. If things start to go sideways right off, it's going to become all the things that all the problems that it's not. It's not going to be about the player if he's the problem. Initially, it's going to be other stuff. You didn't get me the right thing. He had no problem throwing his own offensive line under the bus when Nebraska kicked the shit out of him early in the season, and he blamed his offensive line. You can't do that in the NFL. You are not bigger than your team.
I've seen conflicting stuff on that. So I've heard what you've said, but then I hear other interviews where people say what a great teammate he is. I'm
not saying he wasn't, but I saw him get questioned. I saw him answer.
I know, I did too. So, but I don't know why there's that. I don't know. I will agree with you, though. If they did take Shedeur, it completely breaks the mold of what the Giants normally do. And I'm not even talking about what other people on the site have talked about.
Talking about more the cookie cutter guy, the guy who follows the rules, the whatever. Yeah. Guy, he brings a whole persona.
He is the anti-Daniel Jones. He's the anti-Eli.
Thank God. I mean, we need anything that's anti-Daniel Jones.
Don't start me on that. The Daniel Jones fan club cult is still full bore on BBI. I don't get it. Don't start me on that.
Wait, somebody brought up should we sign Daniel Jones back? And I'm like, you should be shot. Not dead, but like in the leg or something. That's ridiculous. Please don't ever bring that up again. Like Daniel Jones is the reason we are where we're at. I mean, seriously, it's not his fault that the Giants are stupid enough to keep him as long as they did. But for the love of God, I mean, come on. So, question: is this draft though worrisome to you? To some of the other drafts, let's use 2019. You had the Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock group, which was not an overwhelmingly good group. And you've got these three that it's kind of the same thing. Dart easily could fall out of the first round. The only reason I think he's even being slotted in the first round is just how little depth and talent there is at the quarterback position, both currently. I know I saw that. I try not to laugh at that. I still probably could throw better. The fact that there's such a talent gap at quarterback, it's reminding me of that class. You've also got the class that had Bryce Young and then Stroud. They went very high in the draft, and there really was nothing after that. And looking back on it, you would say Stroud was the one underdrafted, which is a great example of overthinking things. People criticize Stroud for a lot of stuff. Right. Young went higher, but his physical limitations really should have been considered a little bit more, considering where he went. But then there's the 2018 draft, right? Look at that draft and the way people were slotting to quarterbacks, right? Sam Darnold was considered right up there at the top. Baker Mayfield was up there, but he wasn't considered to go number one, which he ultimately did. It was very late in the draft.
It was very late.
Cleveland was like, is taking him. Yeah. Josh Allen had a lot of question marks. Lamar Jackson was way at the bottom because his passing was the big question. His athletic ability was not.
Do you see what I mean, though, about picking quarterbacks? We just don't know.
But a lot of those guys, though, produced against high-level competition, and that's the one part that I worry about Sanders. Colorado.
No argument here. No.
Like Dar has the advantage that way. He's played better teams.
Right. No, I have. Look, nobody is a sure thing. I mean, even Cam Ward's not really. There are things about Cam Ward's game that people have said in last year's class he wouldn't have been in the discussion for the first three picks. I'm not sure I agree with that, by the way, but that argument has been made. I still think Caleb Williams, and I felt this before the draft. I always thought he was a bit overrated. We'll see how.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll see how he ends up. But the thing is with the quarterback, and I hate to keep referencing a single poster, but Go Terps does make a lot of good points. Is you have to keep swinging. If you fail, if you don't get your quarterback, don't hold on to him for 6 years like we did and say, you know what? We tried. It didn't work out. It's time to take another swing. This regime has not drafted a quarterback in the 3 years that they've been there. And we have not drafted enough quarterbacks in the previous regimes that were here. We should have been drafting quarterbacks at least every other year until we started restocking the shelf. And then if you get more than one good quarterback, you trade him and you get a windfall for him. So a lot of this is we just haven't been restocking the shelf and taking the swings. So at some point, so part of me is like, people are saying, wait till next year. A big part of me is like, oh, how many times are we going to say wait till next year? Part of me is saying we got to take a swing at some point.
It's a historical problem with the Giants. The Giants had Phil Simms. The only quarterback, and I'm trying to think going through it, the only quarterback that they drafted that lasted any length of time that they did anything with was Hostetler. Was it 1990? I'd have to go back. I think it was 1990. We drafted Craig Kupp, Cooper Kupp's dad, out of Pacific. He was drafted late in the draft. It was when the draft was 12 rounds. But he never made the team. So the Giants got away with, Simms, and they kept Rutledge around for a long time, and Hostetler was the draft choice. And Hostetler wanted out for a long time because he was never getting a chance to play.
Oh, he desperately wanted out. So, he was done with the Giants.
So when he finally came about, it was still Simms Hostetler going through, even as they started to transition, until they drafted Dave Brown. Then they get Brown. We do pick up a Kent Graham later. He was late in the draft, but he became the backup because you only had Brown. Then you went through, then we got a Mike Cherry drafted late. kept him around, but he never played. We picked up Kerry Collins and then Jesse Palmer. So there's a stretch where we did get some guys that they drafted, but you didn't really have a guy that you were fully committed to until Collins. Collins stays, Palmer's the backup until Collins leaves, then we get Manning. Once you get Manning, then we kind of stayed with it. I'm trying to remember who's the guy. Once we went away, we had Carr, who we picked up. We had Johnson for a while as well, but we drafted a guy out of Syracuse. You remember the guy's name? The quarterback out of Syracuse.
What year? Roughly what
I want
year?
to say it was 2012. I think it was 2012.
I'm really having a mental brain fart here. I don't remember.
If anybody in chat remembers who we drafted,
remembers
in
the Syracuse
2012,
quarterback that
we drafted a quarter. I believe we drafted him in the 4th or 5th round.
Oh God, I know it's not the name, but please don't bring up Tommy Madden.
Yeah, no.
Tommy
He wasn't a draft choice. We picked him up as a failure.
He came into the game, he couldn't even take a snap.
Nassib. Thank you.
There it is.
And then,
I forgot about Ryan Nassib.
And then later we took Laletta. We picked him up late. That's much later. But those are kind of it, right? Those are the guys. I hate to do this because I don't have.
There's Andre Woodson. Yeah.
I don't have anything against Go Terps personally at all. It just that's not. I guess I have sometimes the reasoning for things. What I don't like is what I feel like. There's a lot of guys on the site who want to be right more than anything else. So they're okay if the team keeps failing. They're okay if the team keeps failing because it's like I can sit there and scream that I'm right.
No.
Because no offense, in 2022, you got to give credit to this team for what they did to win those games. What they didn't do strategically, and this is the problem that I have, it's not about the quarterback. Yeah, right. It's not about the quarterback. It's the fact that every time when we tried to do certain things, they looked at one very specific area of the team and said, oh, that's the reason why. Eli, we got to get him. Barkley's going to be it, even though the offensive line is not good and Eli's aging. The offensive line under Jerry Reese was ignored a lot. And when they did do it, they went and got, freaking Flowers, who was
the downfall of the New York Giants was them ignoring the offensive line.
And still a problem to this day.
The other subsequent regimes keep investing resources. They're just it's not working out for them. But Jerry Reese actually ignored it. So we went through a period where they didn't have people in the pipeline because Kareem McKenzie and Snee and the center at that time was Kevin. Was it Kevin?
No, we had Sean O'Hara first.
But he had moved on, and who was the center that replaced Sean? Was it Boss? I forgot who it was.
But then he got injured, and we moved over the dude who had the
deal, and that line was getting old, and they never brought in the guys and that's what ruined the second half of Eli's career. And that line in 2011 was already falling apart. People, they were.
That was a shuffled line too. If you remember, in 2009, we moved guys around, and Deal was 1 minute he was a right tackle, he was a guard, and then ultimately he had to play left tackle, and we kept him there. But so we were just plugging guys in, and it survived. But it was Eli in the passing game that made it through there.
Thank you.
So what really, to me, the biggest problem with this team it was David. You're thinking of Kevin. I'm trying to remember the dude who was at the largest fucking backside of any guy I've ever seen in my life. When you mean Booth, Kevin Booth, because he also played.
He had a big ass.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that. He played center from time to time.
Sorry, Kevin, if you're out there listening to us, you had a big butt.
But so. Really, this team, the big problem is not just the quarterback. Every time you do something, it's always singularly focused in that moment. Versus if you have a system, and so this is where I'm going to I know I'm circling way around. This is where I'm going to tie it back to what you were talking about a little while ago. You said about what's Shane going to do, depending on what Mara has told him or hasn't told him about how things are going to go. One of the things that they keep pushing, and I make a joke about it, you make a joke about it, is the process. We just don't know what the hell that means ultimately. But if the process is what we saw last year in Hard Knocks, you slot the guys where we believe they go. You stick to
right.
You know what? If that's true, then they're going to slot the quarterbacks a little bit higher that they absolutely need. But if there's a huge gap after that, a Hunter, a Carter, those guys are going to be there. And the process says you take the guy who could be the all-pro player over the major reach just because we have an empty spot. That's what it means to me.
And that's the $1 million question. Do they, and this goes full circle, do they panic? For lack of a better word, do they panic, not follow their board because they don't have any other options and they know their necks are on the line and they panic? Relatedly, is it not really a panic because, all right, let me tell you what's going to happen. If they end up taking Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart over Hunter or Carter, the media is they're going to come out on April 24th. You know, the draft on that night starts would start at 7 p.m. on the first night. It starts at 7. They'll come out at around 7:45 to address the media. And the first question the media will ask is, is this a reach to take Jackson Dart when Carter was on the board? And their first answer is going to be, no, we had him rated hot. We had him rated as high as any player in this draft. And that's what they're going to sell. That's because they can't say anything else. They're not going to come out and say, you know what, we had to take him because we don't have a quarterback. They're not going to do that. They're going to say that. So whether you believe that or not, that's what they're going to sell when they come out at 7:45 or 8 o'clock, whatever, whenever that pick is made and they come out and talk to the media. And the question is that going to be true? And that gets back to what you just said. Where's the draft board? And are they lying through their freaking teeth about Jackson Dart being as rated as highly, or Shedeur Sanders being rated as highly as Hunter? And or in kind of in that column, Cy's in there, and Cy will tell you flat out, no, they're not the same player. He's going to have his grading system, and I can tell you right now, they're not going to be anywhere. Those guys aren't going to be anywhere near Hunter. I think Cy loves Hunter. If I follow him correctly, I think he loves Hunter. He's not going to have him anywhere near Hunter. And so can they sell that? And is that fine? But this kind of gets back to what other people have said on the site. What good did drafting Malik Neighbors do for you if you didn't have a quarterback? And that's kind of what we found out last year. And I love Malik Neighbors, and I want him on my team. But right now, Malik Neighbors is wasted because we don't have anyone to throw him the football. So if you draft Carter, your defense probably gets to a different level. If you know you had 2 or 3 years with the same regime, then you're like, this is just a building block, and you get your quarterback next year. But if they get fired next year, and maybe that's what people want, is them to get fired, get Carter, and then get the next regime to come in and do it. And that works for me too. But Shane isn't thinking that way. And Dable aren't. They're not thinking, I'm going to fall on the sword, and I'm just going to make the job easier for the next GM. He's not thinking that way. Did I answer? I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I think let's condense it up and we'll finish up.
Yeah.
So right now, back to where we all started with this is the quarterback situation with the veterans. And you basically, what it appears, again, none of us know, what it appears is that Aaron Rodgers has made it kind of clear to some people, again, could be projection on a whole bunch of people's spots, but that he's waiting for the Minnesota. He wants Minnesota to be interested. I don't see that as there's no impetus for Minnesota to do anything right now, because obviously if I know you want me, I'm in no hurry to come get you. I'll just wait because I already got a guy, and that's the guy I'm kind of leaning towards anyway because we drafted him. But if not, then we'll see what happens. So they're in no hurry. Don't forget, they have a lot of money tied up in a couple of different players. Bringing on a Rodgers short term with a ton of money does affect them, and at that point it's all or nothing. So then it's the Giants and the Steelers. I don't think it's in the order of Steelers-Giants, as a lot of people keep saying, because then it's really money. And the Giants offered more money. That's been stated multiple times. I think some of it's going to be years and commitment, guaranteed without incentives, meaning without performance stuff, without games played stuff. He's going to want it all guaranteed. Then there's the Russell Wilson piece, which I kind of feel like Russell Wilson is the guy who's just sitting there going, please, please, someone take me. And he's waiting for the two better options because Cleveland's not a great option for Russell Wilson. he knows there's better talent at wide receiver with both the Steelers and the Giants than there is with Cleveland. Cleveland's offensive line is kind of in a little bit of disarray. And do you want to play in Cleveland? That's kind of a pretty crappy open air stadium in a very cold, right on the lakefront kind of crap that it doesn't fit his style.
Well, this isn't just from Capiche, it's from multiple people who have said his wife wants them to be in New York. So I think again, this is more about some of these guys. It's more about than the football too. It's about them positioning themselves for their lifestyle, including maybe post football. So I don't think there's any doubt that Russell Wilson wants to play for the New York Giants. And you could say that's why you should pick him over Rodgers, is because at least he wants to be here. My problem with Russell Wilson right now is mainly I don't see how he fits our offense, but I would take him over Rodgers just on the want to factor, but I don't really want him on the team either. I'm still leaning towards Flacco and drafting the quarterback. That's where I'm at right now. If they get Russell Wilson, I'll grin and bear it, but I don't think he's going to move the needle. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping he has a renaissance, but I don't think he can become a faster player than he's been the last couple of years. His mobility is not what it was.
So I'll say what I said earlier, hopefully more succinctly than I think I did earlier. If they sign Aaron Rodgers, I have a weird feeling that we're also signing somebody like a Flacco. The reason being is I think that takes us out of forcing the quarterback pick at 3 this year.
And do both.
Because they're going to go after, because you're going to have to make promises to Rodgers. And if that's true, right, you bring Rodgers, you get another veteran to back him up. Now I can take a quarterback later. I can take a McCord. I could take a Howard. I could take a Ewers.
Oh, you're still taking a quarterback later.
Oh, you absolutely still have to take somebody somewhere.
So you're
just not at 3.
3 quarterbacks again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just not at 3. That allows me to get Hunter or Carter, or I trade down and load up, which is really what I'd like to do, because I can still get a pretty good defensive lineman, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slots down, even 10, 15 slots down. A Kenneth Grant from Michigan would be a monster next to Dexter Lawrence. You could get a guy you could get another edge guy maybe if you want to do that. There are other DBs if we want to go that route. You could pick up more picks. I think Rodgers just takes it. The problem is the Giants have to draw a line in the sand shortly.
What's your day again this week? You said you'd wait till which day this week?
I would basically tell them I would go no further than Wednesday, and I would probably go more Tuesday. It's you got to tell us by Tuesday, and then we're shifting gears. Right. You don't do it, we move on to Wilson. We probably bring on Flacco anyway, both guys, because again, that doesn't stop me from taking a quarterback at 3 if I have Wilson Flacco. Rodgers does. Wilson Flacco just makes sure that I don't need that rookie to have to do much of anything right away.
I'm not sure I'm not sure Rodgers coming here stops us from taking a quarterback at 3, but I think you're more likely to see that, like you said. So I could see that if you sign Rodgers, but part of it would be you want to get like a Shedeur here to learn under Rodgers kind of thing. But you might be correct too that they've told Rodgers they won't draft a quarterback to bring him here. This is why I'm wondering, are we should we even be pursuing Rodgers at this point? I don't know. I think there's a lot of baggage here.
You know what's really weird though? Overall, I mean, the Giants don't seem to be saying much of anything. I don't know
what they're doing.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. Do they know more about what's going on than what they're letting on? Do they know the conversations that they've had and that they're fine with it? And that's why they went and picked up who they picked up. That's why they re-signed the offensive line guys that they did, so that they don't have to draft one early. They've got guys who can play. We got some backups. And then we'll go get another guy if we get Rodgers or Wilson or whatever. I think it's Rodgers they're playing. Everything's being built around whether they can get him first. They don't seem desperate. They're not you're not seeing them panicking. They're not bringing multiple guys in.
Either. You wouldn't unless you drive by and you see them running around.
No. My point is though, they could have brought Jameis Winston in just to talk to him and see what's going on and make sure they get that ready just in case. Wilson they just did recently. Flacco they've talked to him, but they're not going out of their way. They didn't scramble after they didn't get Matthew Stafford. You didn't see them hearing rumors that they're trading for this guy or they're doing this. All we heard was, they're talking about moving up. No, they contemplated, no different than Minnesota contemplated signing Rodgers. We don't know what's happening. They seem oddly calm for a team that has Tommy DeVito and nothing else.
But what if you walk in to Quest Diagnostics Center and you open the door and the first thing you see?
Hey, where the are my hard-boiled eggs?
I mean, it might be completely different inside the walls. You have no idea what's going on. So this is a great question. Are they privately freaking out right now? Or like you said, are they as calm as it seems like on the outside? Because look, Flacco came Thursday and left. Russell Wilson came Thursday night, stayed, apparently went out to dinner with them. That's like old school free agency, by the way. The Giants used to do this all the time. They'd bring the guy in, they'd take him out to a steak dinner, woo him at the steak dinner, meet with the coaches the following day, and they would sign him to a contract. That's how free agency used to work 10 years ago. But he came there, they took him out to dinner. I assume he met with the coaches, and then he left. So it looks like you said, are they not panicked and they're going to let this play out and they have a plan? And Darius Slayton says they've got a plan and they're fine? Or are they right now going, Jesus Christ, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Right now as a fan, I'm freaking out a little bit because I don't know
Right.
What's the plan right now?
So
Dart at 3. I mean,
G-Man 2011. I'll answer your question. I didn't say it absolutely prevents you, but I'm thinking you won't do it. If you go Rodgers, you're not going to take another guy. You're going to get every possible weapon to make sure that this works. The only reason to get Rodgers is you're trying to win as many games as possible this year. It's not about the long term. You could get another quarterback later. It doesn't have to be at 3, especially if that guy at 3, like I said, if they stick to the real process, if that guy at 3, let's say it's Sanders, is like the 9th or 10th best player, and you've got Carter Hunter as the 1-2 guys in the draft, and one of them is still sitting there, you're probably going that route to make sure you're trying to win. You could still get another quarterback later. They'll draft one. Now, if you go Wilson, you're probably taking that quarterback no matter what, because Wilson Rodgers is 41 and change. I think, does he turn 42, I think, during the season?
He's 41 now. I don't know when his birthday is.
He may have had a more recent significant injury than Wilson. I still think he has a much better arm than Wilson. I think he can still maneuver in the pocket, and he picks receivers better than Wilson. I'm with Eric. Russell Wilson looks like a short quarterback who no longer has the attributes he used to have.
Yeah. You know what we didn't talk about, and I don't know if you want to save this for another show, maybe tomorrow or next day, but we didn't, and I know we should probably get off soon because we've been on almost, Christ.
2 hours and 17 minutes.
We did not talk about the free agent signings since they signed Smith-Marset back. Do you want to save that for another show?
Yeah, well, I think we'll recap, because we'll see what goes through the weekend.
Okay. Because they did bring back a couple of offensive linemen. They added another defensive tackle. Dory left. They had another special teams. So there's some things that, again, some people will say they don't matter, but some of these things are going to matter, and they affect the offensive line and the defensive line. So we should talk about that soon, too.
All I can say is if Adoree Jackson's on the field for Philadelphia, I am calling run play after run play in his direction. Be like, here, you can tackle for a little while.
You like him when he's running alongside the player?
Yeah, you son of a bitch! You couldn't tackle for us. Here, and I would basically be like, I will tell whatever back we put on the field, you don't juke that guy. You freaking run right into him. I don't care if we only gain 2 yards. Run him into the ground.
And regardless of how Adoree played, and he was up and down. Again, he was always hurt. He never, all the years he was here, and in 2 of the years in Tennessee, he was hurt. So his entire career, he missed games, and not just like 1 or 2 games. He missed huge chunks of the season with injuries. So, okay. So I think we probably should wrap this up so what's your prediction on Rodgers?
I think he's going to make some sort of an announcement. Now, I think the first big one is, are you playing or not playing? I mean, he doesn't have to pick a team because that seems to be the question right now. Because I think what that does is that puts the ball back in people's courts again about give I want more than what you've offered me. Yeah, I'll play. If he comes out and says he's done, I'm retiring, I'm stepping away, I don't buy it. I think it's only until the summer, until he thinks a team might need somebody, and then he comes out of nowhere, the white knight out of nowhere. But I think it's going to be sooner than later. I think for the Giants, though, they're going to run out of time of waiting, and I get a weird feeling it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, that if things don't happen and it doesn't look like it's going to happen, they're going to have to just jump to Wilson. It's just going to have to be.
Are you surprised that two of the old guard, more conservative teams have waited this long on him? I'm surprised both Pittsburgh and the Giants. I know you're going to say, what options do they have? But I'm a little surprised both these franchises have kind of gone along with this.
Well, I think for me, the bigger surprise is like the Steelers. The Giants put themselves in a position by being dumb and thinking that Jones could get them through. I still think they were going to be looking. I said it back in the summer. I thought the Giants were done with Jones no matter what when this season ended, regardless, before he even played the season. Even if he threw 25 touchdowns, I still thought they were going to move on because of all the stuff we saw. It just seemed weird. How could you keep going with him after all that? The Steelers, on the other hand, they basically went after two guys on one-year deals. It was real. You basically put your whole quarterback group on a one-year deal. The Giants had a guy that they had tied up longer. They just ultimately cut bait. So you went into it, and then they offered the other guy, the guy that they pulled out of the starting lineup, replaced with Wilson. They actually, as far as we've heard, offered him a contract. They haven't offered it to Wilson yet. So it's really strange about what they're doing. But yeah, you've got two very long-standing top echelon organizations, one a little better consistently over the years, but as far as championships go, they're right in the same realm with each other. And yet both of them are basically going, please, Aaron Rodgers, at 41 years of age, come play for us. And neither of them seem overly concerned that they don't have somebody.
And he's
else.
Strolling on a beach wrapped in a blanket, looking like a Taster's Choice commercial with, the whole thing is just bizarre to me. I guess I just didn't want to. I knew Rodgers. I knew there were issues with Rodgers. I know I don't want to get into the off the field stuff because that's a whole other thing. I knew that stuff was, but I just didn't know he was as flaky as he was with the football stuff as he's been. Because to me, this is a football thing. This is, are you going to play or you're not going to play? You have a contract. It was like I had the same reaction that who was the sports reporter that was on this week who said, "Come on." You know what the deal is? I forget who it was, but it was one of the major national reporters. He said, you know what the contract's going to be. You just make a decision. And again, it's his decision to make. I get that. But this wasn't something that came out of nowhere. He's known Pittsburgh and the Giants have been interested for some time. And he's just dragging his feet at this point. So the frustration with this, to me, is already exhausting. And again, if we do sign him, we haven't even signed him yet, and I'm exhausted with him. So part of me is just like, I want to go through a season of this crap? And maybe he'll be great. Maybe he'll be a great teammate. He'll show up in the off-season program and he'll do all those things. But right now I'm kind of like, let's just play the rookie. Let's just get a rookie in here and let's play him. So
yeah, and I think, the biggest problem with that part of it is, as you've so eloquently stated so many times, is that game against the Colts cost them the ability to just dictate that, if we don't do anything, it doesn't matter. We can take whoever we want. Now you're with whatever's left at 3, or you're mortgaging the farm to move up just a couple of spots. I don't know. It is weird. It's also, I'll say it's also weird for Minnesota. You are banking on a guy that has not played a single down at the pro level, coming off a knee injury, and you're banking on that guy to be able to keep you in contention. Now, you are counting a lot on the fact that your coach has been unbelievably good with the quarterbacks that he's put together there. No matter who he seems to play, they seem to find ways to win. So maybe that's it. But again, your window of opportunity shrinks very rapidly. You've got an extremely expensive Justin Jefferson. You've got Addison. You've got Hawkinson, the tight end, but he's coming. He's didn't even play a full season last year, coming off that knee injury. You're hoping these guys can stay healthy. Your window of opportunity is very small when you're doing that, and you're counting on a guy that hasn't thrown one single pass at the NFL level yet. So it's weird that these three teams are in the position that they're in. One of them, however, is coming off a playoff appearance. One of them is coming off a double-digit win season, and one of them is considered to have a coach that can basically make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So
the quarterbacking in the NFL sucks right now. Outside 5, 6, maybe 7 guys. And
it doesn't help us that Tennessee technically doesn't have a quarterback, which is why they're probably taking at 1. Cleveland kind of doesn't have a quarterback, which is why they may go 2. Then there's us at 3. You could easily throw in Vegas, even though they signed Smith. They can be there. The Jets, they signed Fields, but I mean, this is Fields' 3rd team. Are you sure that this is the guy you want to hook your wagon to long term? And then there's the 49ers. There's that weird part with the Niners who have a Brock Purdy that wants a big contract, and they don't seem to want to give it to him. Yeah. So there's a lot of teams that need quarterback at the top. That's why I still think there's going to be a trade that happens. I think it's going to be a significant one, either before or the night of the draft.
So to wrap this up, Giants try to get Matthews, failed. Try to get Rodgers, looks like they might fail. Have pivoted to Flacco or Wilson.
Do you think they have a specific?
Says they can sign both. I mean,
do you think they have a specific order? They saw Flacco first, then Wilson. Do you see it as that order, or do you think it would be Wilson signed before Flacco?
The prevailing opinion amongst the fans out there is that Wilson's the obvious option. I'm not sure he's the obvious option. I think Flacco makes more sense if they're going to draft a quarterback for a guy that you want to be in the quarterback room in a quarterback's ear. Again, Flacco's supposedly a really good guy to have around in the locker room. And I think he offers more for the offense. Look, he's not good. The Giants are not going to win. They're not going to have a winning season with Joe Flacco at quarterback. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying he offers more to the offense because he won't ignore parts of the field where Russell Wilson just isn't. Again, Russell Wilson will be good for Slayton. He'll be good for Hyatt. He'll be good for Neighbors on the outside perimeter. It's just I don't see the mix. I don't see. So I think it is telling that Flacco came in first, and no one's talking about that. So
agreed.
I think Flacco might be the guy they turn to first. What Art Stapleton's saying is don't discount them signing both.
So that
would be interesting.
I know we talked about this already, but I just want to be clear because I made sure to double check that it was posted in multiple spots. This is the way this is written. I'm going to read it the way it's written. Aaron Rodgers is reportedly waiting on dialogue from the Vikings before making a choice, which means the Vikings haven't said anything. My assumption is
that means this could go on forever. That means this could go on forever.
It might. But if the other 2 teams involved go, okay, well, you've got until this date and we're going to move on, then he's basically put the ball in the Vikings' court. We need to have a conversation before I'll make a decision. So
you're more optimistic about.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I actually think I'm beginning to wonder if he's basically going to go Minnesota or retire, because he can always come back out of retirement because he's a free agent, right?
And what if he signs with the Giants and he decides to retire? I mean,
well, there is that, but here's the thing, right? When you retire, if you retire under contract, you have to be released by the team you retired from, or they trade your rights. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's a free agent. So he can say, I retire, which takes him out of the offseason stuff, takes him out of training camp. And then if a team who's potentially a winning team runs into a quarterback issue, runs into an injury, all of a sudden, here's Aaron Rodgers going, you know what? I guess I do want to play. Yeah. So don't think that he's got options. And the Giants and Steelers, the only thing they have in their favor is how much money they're willing to throw at him. But that's not going to be the driving factor for a crazy guy like Rodgers.
Yeah, I guess where I am on this, and again, this is not a way to operate. The Giants are probably handling this better, is what I'm saying. But I was kind of on board with getting Rodgers in here because of the insurance, but because of the way this is going, the longer this takes, the more I'm like, the slack I was willing to give them to sign him, that slack is gone. So part of me is, and maybe this is the wrong way, and I don't have the right temperament to be involved in personnel decisions, but I would probably put that line in the sand earlier. And this still may work out for the Giants. Rodgers might be a Giant a few days from now, and we'll be back on here and say, well, at least they have insurance now and they don't have to force the pick. And they were patient, and kudos to them, and they handled it right. So that's certainly possible.
So to wrap up this show, by the way, like, subscribe, man, we're doing really well, by the way. We've passed 940 subscribers in a short amount of time, closing in on that 1,000 mark, which we were really hoping for. We're trying to do more live shows. I love the chat piece; it really helps.
Yeah, chat's cool, and I'm sorry we didn't get to more questions today, guys.
But you threw out there my thoughts on whether or not a trade with, like, if the Giants were going to trade to one, whether I thought it would happen before the draft. Where do you fall in that? Do you think if they want to trade it from either side, the Titans or the Giants side, will that trade happen prior to or the night of the draft?
Oh, I think it'll happen the night of the draft. I think it'll happen with 2 minutes left on the clock. So I think the Titans will try to scare the bejesus out of the Giants, and they'll try to find out if they can get that first round draft pick. I think they'll wait to the last possible minute and play a game of chicken. And why would they not? Because this is what I said before free agency started. I said if the Giants get the free agency and they don't get the quarterback wrapped up, because I thought Rodgers would make his decision in the first day. But I said if they didn't get this wrapped up, the Titans know they have the Giants over a barrel. And I think that's we're still in that until Rodgers kind of makes up his mind, but I'm leaning towards he's not coming here. So I think the Titans have us in a barrel. So if I'm the Titans, there's no reason for me to trade this pick until the last possible second right now, because they can scare the Giants. They can scare Shane. And now if the Giants want to call their bluff, they can simply say, this is a take it or leave it now. But I don't think they'll do that.
Right.
And again, the question is this: what do they think of Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart? If they like Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart as a first-round quarterbacks, that's moot. If they don't like them as first-round quarterbacks, then the Giants have a big, big problem.
I think they tipped their hand on Shedeur Sanders early in the season. The multiple visits to go see him. You don't do that during the season and make such a big deal about it. And then Shedeur probably called them a little bit by getting to play catch with Malik in the street and doing that kind of stuff. You know, he's smart about how he does stuff, and that sent a message.
Cleats and the cleats.
You don't want to look bad. You don't want to. The Giants, you're going to look bad. You spent all this time with him, and then you weren't, and he was there, and you just chose to go dart over him. That's going to look really bad for a lot of reasons. I think if Sanders is sitting there and they go quarterback at 3, I think it's going to be.
And last question for you, and I know we keep saying this. Last question for you is: do you put any stock in this stuff that we're seeing that Sanders camp doesn't want to play in Cleveland and they have any leverage at all over Cleveland about him not going there? I don't really buy that, but a lot of people do. Do you? Behind
the scenes, if it's true, because we don't know if it's true. I haven't seen him come right out and say, I don't want to play in Cleveland. If it's true behind the scenes, then absolutely I do, because Dion is not stupid. Dion knows that he handled the draft the way he wanted to. He refused to take the Giants psychological test because he goes, you draft too low. I'm not doing that. He's going to have a lot of sway that way. Let's put it this way. Archie Manning had a lot of sway with Eli when it came to the draft. We all know how that all played out. If you think Deion Sanders has less sway in the NFL than Archie Manning, then you are sadly mistaken.
Yeah. So, I also thought it was interesting. Did you see our old buddy Pat Shurmur's comments on Shedeur?
Yes.
And again, obviously, he's going to stand up for his guy. He works for his father. He's not going to badmouth him. But Pat Shurmur knows quarter. I mean, right or wrong, whether you like him or not, and he wasn't made to be a head coach. He seems to know quarterbacks, so that's
Well,
another.
the other thing too, I know I kind of jokingly said it before, but I mean it. The Dion clock suddenly pops up the second you draft Shador with a coaching staff, like you said, a coaching staff that's basically on the edge the whole time, right? This winner be gone. That's really where Dayball's at. All of a sudden, the countdown of Dayball being gone and Dion coming in is legitimately there. And that also means Pat Shurmur probably comes with him as the offensive coach, the guy who would. Do not discount that as a possibility, and that's the extra pressure I'm talking about. If I'm Dayball, I'm like, oh shit, like this is. I want the player, but holy crap, I could literally be drafting the kid whose dad's going to take my spot.
You don't know how much trouble that will cause in my household because my wife, the first lady of BBI, can't stand Dion. She hates Dion. She can't stand him, and that will cause all kinds of issues in this house if that ever happens.
I don't want to see it because I think he's great for the college environment. I think he brings that aura, and he can recruit, and he brings in players. I'm trying to think, is Marshall Falk now a coach there? I don't
know.
I think Warren Sapp is a coach there. Some of these guys, though, I'm kind of like, oh my God, that is not something I really want to have coming here. But it is a legit possibility if you draft Shador, because you're not gonna yank the rug out from under Shador after 1 year if the Giants fail. You're not gonna blame him. You're gonna blame the coach who was already on his way out. That's the problem that you bring. If you take a dart at that point, then it doesn't really matter. Yeah, Dayball's going to go, but if that new coach comes in and wants a different quarterback, they'll go get a different quarterback. You're not bringing a coach in who's going to go get rid of Shador because of all the stuff that comes with him. So you're probably bringing somebody, and who's more than okay with Shador than his dad.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
It would break the mold for the Giants to draft Shador. It would be typical Giants for the Giants to draft Dart. Eli's got his approval. That type of thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Right now I think they're going quarterback for better or worse because I think they've boxed themselves into a position. But let's see what happens with Rodgers. Right now I think they're drafting a quarterback at 3, or they're trying to trade up. But I don't know if the Titans are willing to trade.
No, and the other thing that I did say, if they do sign Rodgers, I highly expect that they will make a trade for somebody else. I think or they'll either sign Diggs, or they will trade for a Brandon Ayuk. I think you can count on the fact that they will bring somebody else in, another weapon. Because if you're going Rodgers, you're going all in. You've got to win. That's what you told him. He's not coming here to just get 4 or 5 wins and be the bridge for the other quarterback. You're bringing him in to be the guy for the entire season and to win games.
A lot of stock in Darius Slayton, John. So
the
truth is here now. So
you know what? That really pissed me off. That was a great line.
It was so
funny. It was so funny. Now his freaking truth is here.
It's now.
We needed a better counselor for this situation, because obviously repairing this relationship was not what I was counting on.
Hey, regardless of what you think of Darius the player, he is a good guy.
Oh, he's a good guy.
Team player, and what a ride he had. He went from a guy that was 7th on the pecking order under Dable his rookie year, and it looked like he was going to get cut in training camp, and here he is, 3 years, $36 million, and he's back. I didn't think
sorry, I don't mean to cut you. Not Dable. He was a rookie, but he was a rookie.
No. But remember when he was with Dable, when Dable's first year here,
Dable's rookie year. Yes.
Yeah, Dable.
They were looking to cut him, and he took less money to stay.
Dable's first year here, he was 7th on the. Remember,
go back and look at some of the write-ups. Right before they were doing cut downs, he was a guy that supposedly he was on, and then all of a sudden he took a deal for less money to stay.
Right.
So that's, it's even more than that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So what a journey he's had, and again, he's not been anything but a professional. He's been So we'll see. I like to see him and Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors with a real quarterback. So that's part of the
Yeah,
appeal to Aaron Rodgers is you get a real quarterback in here. So, all right. On that note, I'm done.
We'll wrap it up. We'll be back if breaking news happens. We'll probably do something tomorrow, but if not, it'll be probably at the beginning of the week next week. And then we'll go. We'll kind of set it from there. And pretty soon it'll be kind of focusing more on the draft and all that good stuff. So again, like, subscribe, comment, really appreciate it. And other than that, I guess we'll sign off and we'll catch you real soon.